It's time for Windows Weekly, the last episode of 2023, but boy, do we have a surprise for you. A very special visitor as we look back at Microsoft's year 2023 and ahead to 2024 with a friend from the past. Windows Weekly is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 860 for Wednesday, December 20th, 2023. An unexpected visitor. Windows Weekly is brought to you by CacheFly, delivering rich media content up to 159% faster than other major CDNs. Join CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Your website visitors will love CacheFly's lag-free video loading, hyper-fast downloads, and friction-free transaction processing. Learn how to get your first month free at cachefly.com/twit. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Microsoft. Last show of 2023. Paul Thurrott is here. Richard Campbell is here. It's the most wonderful time of year. Happy Poinsettia Day, everyone. We have placed poisonous plants around the studio. Don't eat that, Paul.
Oh, sorry.
In honor of Poinsettia Day. My ugly shirt, I was going to wear the Microsoft one, but I wore that a couple weeks ago, is I'm here to delete your cookies. And it's got a little cup of coffee. That from Google? I think Lisa made it for me with her bare hands. She knitted it. But hello, you two. Now, Paul, hello. I don't want to be that guy, but didn't you promise that there would be something special today?
Did I?
Yeah, like is Chris Capicella here or something like that?
Oh, there is something like that.
What? Yes. I'm ready.
You have the switch.
Shall I press the switch?
You have the con, as we say.
Okay. I do not know. It's Fader 4. Let's turn on Fader 4. Mystery guest, would you sign in, please? Fader 4. Hello?
This is like a really bad episode of the dating game.
It's
hello.
Now, if I press
fans.
If I press Q again, will she go away? Yes. Okay, just curious.
Wow.
Mary Jo Foley. Oh my God. It's so good to see you.
Hi. Thank you.
We
nice seeing all of you.
Just for the record, I have begged this woman for a year to come on the show again. And then the other day she's like, hey, how about if I come on?
Oh my God.
Like, come on. Really?
That's awesome.
No, but then he said, when you come on, though, you have to wear a Mark Russinovich mask.
Yes.
And I'm like, do
that would be funny.
Mark Russinovich masks?
That would they should. Yeah. And probably as a special run, you'll have to wear it.
Yeah.
Well, Mary Jo, how are you?
I'm good. Nice seeing you.
So listen, since it's been a while, I thought we'd go back through all the old show notes and just talk about the stuff that you missed. Do you mind?
Yeah,
so,
a whole year's
11 episodes ago.
Yeah. Holy moly.
Catch you up all at once.
How long has it been since you've been calling?
Actually, I don't remember.
My last show was the last week of October 2022.
Yeah.
So it's been a little more than a year.
Yeah.
And how are things at your new employer, which is a research firm, right? Or an analyst firm?
Right. Directions on Microsoft.
Yeah.
The best Microsoft watching firm.
Very, very
so
good.
yourself.
Yeah. And you're happy?
Things are
Everything's
good.
going well? Yeah.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of the past year, I said to Paul, I'm learning a lot about licensing. Maybe I could do like hidden gems about Microsoft licensing. He's like, yeah, no, we're not.
You know what?
That.
Actually, we're running a little short on time.
I'm sorry. I made a whole run-as on the topic with her.
You did.
Nobody wants to talk about licensing.
Licensing learnings this week on Windows Weekly. That's exciting. Oh,
yes.
Neat. So you write mostly? You do a podcast for them, or what do you?
Yep, we're doing podcasts. We're doing a blog. We have our own blog now that I started, and I've been writing other content for them, with them, and it's been. You know what? I thought I knew something about the enterprise. I didn't until I went there. I'm like, wow. I knew nothing.
Wow,
I knew nothing at all about the enterprise.
Well, you were our enterprise person, so that's a little disappointing.
I know. But you know what? No, I mean, I had a good basis for it.
Yes.
I mean, at least
that. You're selling yourself short. I'm sure you were fully up
one
to
of those
speed.
things that the deeper you go, the more you
Yes.
find.
Well, that's the
Keeps
problem.
going.
Yeah, it's an endless.
Indeed.
It's licenses all the way down.
It sure is.
How neat. How neat. So this is the podcast. You have the blog.
Yeah.
Really great. And I bet you're having
Yeah.
a lot of fun without us
Yeah.
around.
It's been really, really educational to see the questions that come in from enterprise customers and just the things they're struggling with. It's just, as a journalist, you're always looking for the new. And then you see, oh, they're stuck on like old versions of Windows. You're trying to figure out how to stay compliant and governance and all these topics. As a journalist, you're like, oh no, I don't want to write about
I was
that.
just going to say, like, how do I non-rudely say, how boring?
No,
but it's but
There's
it's just
actually a lot there.
it's the day-to-day, real life thing.
Yeah.
Every organization I've ever dealt with has one trouble app, like one app that won't run the latest anything, requires SQL Server 2012, requires NetBEUI network, like something. And it's essential to the business. And then, and no two companies are the same. It's impossible.
It is.
Well, Mary Jo, welcome back. I
Enabling
guess.
wins.
Paul, did you prepare something special for our special guest? Or are we just going to do the same old, same old?
It's pretty much the same old, but it's also the last year show of the year, last live show of the year. So I thought we should, actually Mary Jo suggested we should, do the thing we used to do, which is sort of look back, look ahead,
Fantastic.
that kind of stuff. And she's got some back of the book stuff
I do.
as well. So it'll be kind of fun.
All right.
Great.
Yes, our back of the book looks robust today.
It does.
Are we going to have beer and
enterprise
liquor?
pick.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
beer
God.
and brown liquor.
Just
It's
like
going to be
in
a
real
show.
life.
Yep. The way the Scots like to drink it, a big beer and a little shot.
It's not like a Pennsylvania supermarket. It has beer and hard liquor.
Wow. So we're going to go to the package store of Windows Weeklies.
The packy.
Yeah, the packy. So kick us off. I see the headline says our national nightmare is over.
Yeah. So
Mary Jo's
I
back.
think you meant I was back. I assume
yeah,
that's
no,
what
not
we
that.
meant.
Great. Not Mary Jo. That's not what that means. No, this is sort of a side topic. Surely you folks have noticed that the national discourse has gotten a little extreme. And I've noticed this spill over into our world, right? That maybe I brought this up a few weeks ago, but everyone is like so like about everything, There's been a bug in Windows 11 for over a year. I feel like this has been in Windows 11. I mean, Windows forever. I think this predates Windows 11, but whatever. Where you're working in some application, some window, and File Explorer jumps to the front, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's only two reactions to that statement. You say, "Oh yeah, no, I have experienced that," and I thought it was me. Like I thought maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I was typing and I hit some key thing and it made
Fat fingered something.
Yeah, but then you have the couple of people who are like, "Yeah, that never happens," and it's like, I get bad news for you. Yeah, well, it does happen. Like it actually, it's not like something that's some configuration problem. Like it literally is it's a bug in Windows. Like so anyway, they fixed it in a preview update that went out the other day. Actually, it might have been last week, and that means it will be in the non-preview stable version of Windows 11 starting in January. So they fixed it. We don't all have it, but if you are reluctant to install these preview updates, I would say maybe give this one a shot because this
is a good one.
Yep, it's a bad problem.
So what happens is you're just working in another app and suddenly File Explorer jumps out and opens.
So
okay,
Windows,
I've never had that happen. I'm just going
steals your focus.
You're one of those people. No,
I am
so
one of those
Windows has long had kind of what I would call like a focus problem. Where anything could happen, and you're typing. It's most annoying when you're typing. Typing a password or something. That happens to me all the time. I'm in a website, some other thing jumps to the front. You're like, come on, and now you don't even know where you were because it's blocked out or whatever. Right. But the File Explorer one is very specific. It's a bug with File Explorer, obviously, but.
No, and I've renamed a file by accident in the process.
Yeah.
I have deleted a file by accident in the process, or two, and you don't know which one you deleted. Like you're like, what happened?
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Now, this will not solve all of the other very real problems with File Explorer, including all the performance and reliability issues, which I also see all day long, every day, because I'm doing that photo consolidation thing where I'm dealing with lots of files, and like literally between lunch and this show, I was working out on the laptop on that. It happened twice. I had to force quit, as we say in the Mac world or whatever task manager kill Explorer.exe twice in just that short time span. So that stuff, that's not getting fixed, not anytime soon. But
I haven't been on the show since they changed File Explorer, so I haven't had the opportunity to rant about.
Mary Jo, they have changed it twice since you've been on the show.
The first time I really noticed the change, you know me, I never notice visual changes. I open File Explorer and I'm like, what has happened to File Explorer?
Wow. I like that you've noticed something.
I did. And then I thought I can get around this by setting tabs so I can set each of my folders as a tab. But every time I have to do something, reboot, or something goes wrong and my machine crashes, all the tabs go away and then I have to do it all over again. Right?
So this is this is kind of a Microsoft 101. They'll fix that in a future release. So remember when virtual desktops finally arrived in, I think it was Windows 10, after being, a hidden feature in Windows for a long time. That was the same issue. To reboot, you're like, hey, but my virtual desktops all disappear. Like, no, okay, we're going to bring those back. It's like, okay, can we name them? Yeah, we'll do that too. But over time, they sort of add those features. So I would imagine that with Notepad, you know this because you use Notepad. Notepad does that session state remember feature, right?
Yep.
Why wouldn't File Explorer do the same thing?
I know.
So I bet it happens.
By the way, a great change to Notepad. You don't hear me say that often. The save the state thing is fantastic. That's great.
Yeah. I actually turned that off, but I understand why you would like. No, but
we haven't talked about Notepad since October 2022.
Right?
Well, we're going to talk about. We were talking about Notepad within 5 minutes of right now because it's actually one of the topics. So
excellent. I'm glad I came on this episode so I can talk about Notepad.
Very exciting.
And it's the Notepad episode.
It is.
That's right.
It's a Notepad kind of Christmas.
Notepads are us. Call in with your Notepad tips and we'll share them with the audience.
When I shut down all my machines before I left the house because, the power was going to turn off. That's to have them off. And I had a couple of Notepads open because I pop it open, write some notes and leave it. And sure enough, that hung the shutdown. I said, force shutdown because I know it's going to save the content anyway. When I do power back up,
there you go. Nice.
Well, thank you for joining us, Mary Jo. And I hope you all have
it was a great time.
Holiday.
Thanks for having me.
15 months, we'll see you again? Or how do you want to?
Segment is over. Yes. Nice. All right, do you want to move on to?
I do.
Yes. Windows 11. Yes.
And Microsoft 365.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So Microsoft, anyone who kind of follows Windows probably knows that with each new release of Windows, whether it's a new version of Windows 10 in the day or Windows 11 now, Microsoft will release a list of features that they are deprecating, and oftentimes also a list of features they have removed right from this version of Windows. But this has changed, just like the updating scheme has completely changed after Microsoft said a year ago, hey, we're just going to update you once a year, and then updated us 15 times in 12 months. They were actually deprecating features very aggressively now, and in a way they have not ever really done in the past. So I have let me see if I can find the number of this because I wrote this in here somewhere. But rather than delay this, but yes. So last year in 2022, they deprecated 2 features. In 2023, actually now it's 17. When I wrote this, it was 16. They've deprecated one since I wrote this post. So they don't do that once a year thing anymore, right? And we have theories about why this may be. I think it might actually have to do with some of the regulation stuff that's coming in the EU, especially where they have to give people choice over what they can do in Windows and so forth. And I think just from a support cost perspective, they're like we're going to start chopping this stuff up.
Well, and a bunch of them are security related, right? TLS 1 and 1.1.
Yeah.
All
even something like even
these
WordPad,
are all vulnerability things.
Yeah. Even WordPad had security issues associated with it. And, you just can't support that stuff forever. Right. So yeah, it's been kind of interesting. I wrote this because I saw something about the legacy console mode was being deprecated. And I was like, they just deprecated WordPad and tips. And then they had a list when they released 23H2, but I'm like, also like Cortana was deprecated. So I went and looked it up and it's like, no, they've deprecated like dozens of these things. So I think this is just going to keep happening. I think it's the yang to the updates yin and yang.
I was going to ask you if you feel like it might be the new regime in charge of Windows who are much more attuned to those kind of things. Like they're like,
that could be.
You know what? This is a mess. Let's clean it up.
Well, so there's back until about a year ago, I would say Microsoft and Apple were on the opposite extreme of this. Like I think a lot of people would agree maybe Microsoft's a little too slow getting rid of legacy, features, and Apple was maybe a little too aggressive, and so they're obviously leaning much more to the Apple side of this fence right now. I don't have a problem with it. Honestly, I'm not suggesting that it's too much. When you look at the things they're deprecating, typically there's a newer, more modern feature that replaces it for one thing. I mean,
they're not taking away functionality. And again, of course, I've got the security hat on here. Like they're taking away things that are dangerous.
Yeah, it's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's good. In fact, if anything, it's overdue.
Yeah. And maybe just be catching up here, like that there's a bunch of stuff and the pace is going to drop. But I'm with MJ. I do think Windows is in this new place where it's no longer the center of the company, and any changes to it immediately lead to calls to the CEO. And a new team has started to assert itself and is trying to write what they think the product should be.
Yeah. I mean, I disagree with the updating half of this, but honestly, the deprecating part, I think this is fine.
Yeah. Still some experiments going on.
Yeah. And then let's see, last week we would have talked about, I think Dev Canary, some other builds, I don't remember, but the Windows Insider program released its last build of the year, probably Thursday, I would imagine, since we didn't talk about it, to the beta channel. It is the last build of the year, I should say. Nothing all that surprising in here, in that most of this we've seen in other channels, voice access, which is an accessibility feature, which, by the way, is the replacement for one of those features they deprecated, right? The old voice recognition service. That's probably not the exact name.
I think it's speech recognition.
Speech recognition, thank you. Right. That debuted in Windows Vista. That now, or will soon, does in this beta build support multiple displays. The Windows 365 features we talked about before. And then the Notepad feature functionality I just alluded to. This is new to me. Maybe this is somewhere else, but I hadn't seen this. So Notepad in this version supports an edit with Notepad right-click option when you're in File Explorer, anywhere, like on the desktop, right? So you can right-click something and edit it with Notepad directly without having to go through Open With or whatever, if it's a supported file type. And then also that character count display, which was not new to me. We talked about this before.
And still but not a word count, because
not a word count, because it's hard to do word count. And I know that because I implemented it. And seriously, if I can do it, you're Microsoft, stop embarrassing yourself.
So wait, but they are doing character count, right? But
character
not word
count, yeah.
Right.
They should do both, right? I mean, it should be
side by side.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, you could click it and have it, toggle to the other one. It could be, there's all kinds of things you could do there.
I know. In Discord, I see people saying they love Tab Notepad. So I'm going to tell you, I don't love Tab Notepad.
Yeah, I don't either.
I wish I could turn the tabs off. I wish it was an option. I thought I was going to love it, but you can't, well, I don't think, right?
Yeah, you can't. You could do actually, I think you can. I don't like it either, if that helps, but I think you could just do, nope, you can't. No, you actually Control N opens the tab. All right, so there's another example. Like I bet that happens over time, right? And they'll give you that option.
Yeah. I hope so. I really did think I would use that a lot, but instead I get really confused. Like, what tab am I in? And then it randomly opens empty tabs, and I'm like, now I'm way over here. Yeah.
So as a compulsive idiot, I will tell you one of the among the stupid things that I do while I'm using a computer is I will close documents and files and Windows compulsively, and then realize I need to go back to that thing. And I do this all the time, and I'm too late. I'm not even going to try to fix this, but I do this all the time. And what I've noticed with the new Notepad is because I'm constantly opening like a set of certain files a lot, in this case related to the book, I keep opening the same files over and over again. So I have a Notepad window that has like 8 tabs, and 7 of them are one file.
The same file.
It should not. It should know that it's already open and not open that again, or prompt you or something, but it doesn't. And so that's kind of a weird little.
And from a developer's perspective, disabling a new feature is something you build in on day one, because you use that anyway. Yeah, but the assess that the file's already open and only open that one, that's definitely a later feature kind of thing. It's a good idea, but it does take some thinking.
Yep. Yeah. So I think we're going to get that there too, actually. I'm not like upset about it. It's just, you see it and you're like, okay,
how much Notepad development do we really need?
Yeah. You understand what happened, but it's like, whatever. It's not a huge deal, but I do configure it not to save the session state. So if I open 7 tabs of the same document, close the thing and open it, they're gone. Except the third of the 7 will be like, hey, did you want to save the change? You mean like, oh, I don't know. You know, like I don't know what the new one. I don't know. Anyway, okay. And then I just threw this in here because we don't really have a formal Microsoft 365 section today because it's the only story. But this was just announced as the show started, and it's in this random tech community blog post that's really about Teams extensibility, not just via apps, but also now Copilot plugins, right? For those people in Microsoft 365 Copilot. And they revealed in this post that Teams now has 320 million users, right? And I think it was 300, right? Was it the last number we got?
Something like that, yeah.
I think what we got, yeah.
I think it was 300. So I don't have this in front of me because again, it just happened. But they also revealed that there are now over 2,000 apps in the Teams store, and we don't get to see these, but enterprises have built over 145,000 custom line of business apps for Teams as well. Thus ensuring that this thing will be with us for the rest of our lives.
Forever. I know. They did say this number. I just looked it up.
They did.
During their earnings, but I don't remember it being a big deal. It must have just kind of been under the radar.
Right. I might have. That's the type of number I would have forgotten and or.
I would also point out Srini is the VP of product management for Teams. Like that's actually a very senior person writing a blog post. So. I guess he worked late in the year and taking his.
Well, by the way, writing a blog post to that blog, especially because there is a Microsoft 365 blog, which is far more well promoted and so forth. This is a
put it on the Teams
basically support.microsoft.com. I mean, it's kind of it's interesting, which is another one of my long-standing pet peeves. Microsoft, you have too many places where you put stuff. If you have an announcement to make about Microsoft 365 or Teams or whatever, maybe it should be one place. How does that sound?
And it's a really extensive post. Like it's really an analysis of what they've done in the past year, as well as talking what's going to come in the next year. Like this is what I'm a roadmap post. It's kind of important.
He drove into a very dark Microsoft campus yesterday or today, turned some lights on in the building he works in. No one else was there. And he started typing, And he's like, I think I'm going to let this take its own form here. I'm just going to go nuts. Because I'm pretty sure that campus is mostly empty right now.
Yeah, people are gone.
Yeah, what is it, like 5 days? Yeah, 5 days before Christmas, right?
Yeah. Well, and he is in Redmond, so I suspect he typed it from home, but interesting. It's this almost reads like an internal email about how we did this year. Maybe it's just been polished a little to be put in the public. I'm not sure why, but I mean, I'm not happy because this is good info. Like they did a lot this year.
Yep. No, it's a great post. It would have been a great post on the Microsoft 365 blog, which is where I looked for it first. But it's not there.
Interesting.
Yep. Speaking about, this is also semi-related in the sense that this should have been promoted more widely. And actually, now that you guys are both here, I will ask you now publicly. We all know the whole story about Copilot and the rebranding and the extensibility story and how plugins will work across ChatGPT and Copilot and wherever Copilot is, right? So in Windows 11, in Bing, in Edge, I guess in Bing, and in Microsoft 365, right? You can write a plugin that targets Copilot and or ChatGPT, and it will work everywhere, right? And I believe the last time they discussed this was Ignite, where they did not say they're available, just that this capability is now available, right? Does that sound okay? Do either of you recall or recall Microsoft announcing that actually those plugins are now available, or some are now available? Don't you think that the very first one they would have said, "Hey, there it is, we did it. Here's the first plugin." Does anyone remember this?
I think there was somewhere. Maybe, you know how we went to that September event where Microsoft talked about Copilot in New York. I think they talked a lot about plugins there. And I think shortly after that, there was a Bing blog post about it.
There was. Okay. I don't remember this.
But I agree with you. I didn't really notice them until they just announced this song one. Yeah.
Right. Which is how I found this out. So before we get to that, I just want to say real quick, when you think about it, when you think about a platform of any kind, whether it's Windows or Teams, which now has thousands of apps, right? This is the legitimacy point, right? Microsoft has super aggressively in 1 year planned, announced, orchestrated, released, and rebranded twice a Copilot platform for AI assistance or whatever we would call this thing. And a big part of it being legitimate is this extensibility bit, right? The plugins, extensions, whatever they call plugins. So Microsoft, like Mary Jo said, Microsoft announced a new capability, as they described it, to create music now with Copilot, using a partnership with a company called Suno. I'd never heard of, but if you go to suno.ai, you'll see what they do is make music. And they said, the way you enable this is click on plugins. And I'm like, wait, click on plugins? Like, what are you talking about? Is that a thing? And yeah, if you go to not bing.com necessarily, although maybe it's there, but go to copilot.microsoft.com,
right?
Preferably in Edge, which is a sentence you will never hear me say again, and sign in. You have to sign in with the Microsoft account. You will see that there are several plugins available today, including Instacart, Kayak, Klarna, which is a shopping service, I guess, OpenTable, Shop, Search, which I assume is theirs. It's probably just that one's probably just been
these are OpenAI plugins.
These are OpenAI plugins. They're interesting. Okay, so
there's also Copilot plugins, which apparently are separate.
Okay, interesting. So, but they're surfaced.
That they mentioned.
They're surfaced now here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, I think this warranted a bigger or an actual announcement.
Yeah, maybe it's because they're soft launching it, right?
Yeah, this feels soft launchy for a reason.
Yeah. Okay.
I know. Have you tried the song one?
Yeah. Should we do it? I couldn't get it to. I couldn't get it to come back.
It should be a soft launch, I think. Yeah. Like
it told me it would come back in a few minutes, and it's been a day.
Yeah.
So it has not. Write us.
I actually asked it to write a little song about Windows Weekly, the podcast, and I have to say it wasn't something I'd like to share with the group. It wasn't that great.
Well, actually, okay. No, this time it came right back. It came back with lyrics. Okay.
Yeah, it comes back with lyrics. And then the little slider button that's under plugins, it shuts off, even though it says it's using it, which is kind of strange, right?
Oh, that's kind of funny.
So I think it's not really working right.
This is working a little bit better. But how do I hear it?
That's what I couldn't figure out.
It's been a while since I've seen your face, but every year in my thoughts and memories. The snow is falling, the lights are shining bright. I can't wait to catch up and hold you tight. Mary Jo Foley, you're finally home for Christmas. And then it says
it's supposed to play music for you somehow. It says
I've submitted your request to create a song about her. It will be ready in a few minutes. So
yeah, that's what I got yesterday, and it never came back. But this one came right back with the lyrics.
I like the lyrics.
I got the lyrics. Yeah.
Okay, this says you need to click on the audio icon below the lyrics to listen to it. But
I tried to do that.
I don't have an audio button.
Wait. I see it. It was at the end of the sentence.
This thing? That's just an emoji.
Oh, yeah.
That ain't nothing.
It also says you can visit Suno and play the song there.
Well, we're just waiting.
You might have to join Suno.
How long will it take to create the song? I'm asking. That was one of the buttons.
Yeah.
Searching. The time depends on the genre, the style, the complexity, the skill of the producer. According to web sources, take 4 to 5 days.
4 to 5 days. Wow.
However, they're talking about a regular song. However, Suno is a powerful tool that uses artificial intelligence to generate songs in minutes. You can expect your song to be ready in less than 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. By the way, so interestingly, when I signed into my account on Suno.ai, my Microsoft account, the songs I tried to create yesterday are now there.
So it did render them eventually.
But the one I just made is not here.
It's been a while. I like this one for Mary Jo Foley. It's gonna be a wonderful holiday tune.
Excellent.
That everyone will be singing.
Unless I'm missing something, I don't believe you can create an instrumental song, which is kind of what I would really want to use this for.
I think that's what it was supposed to be, right? Wasn't it? It was.
I don't know, but my first attempts were all instrumental songs, and one of them has an opera lady singing in it, which is terrible. And
opera lady.
Not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I stand by my point. I think it's a soft launch because it's not really ready.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's nice they turn on the plugins, but you're right, Richard. These look like the OpenAI plugins.
There's clearly two sets. There's there's Copilot plugins and there's OpenAI plugins. They both are. And then they've also thrown into the category Teams extensions, like they're the same.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. They've also
that would be a stretch.
Notice that you can enable 3 at a time.
That's interesting.
Limit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, hey, this is free. I paid $20. I paid $20 a month for OpenAI's ChatGPT, so free. You know. It's okay.
And we are going with the holiday season. And this time last year, everyone was getting enamored of ChatGPT. So I think it's important to line up the tools for people to get existential with software again over another holiday season.
Am I crazy to think that the real future of AI is going to be running it locally on your system? Maybe not. But I just feel like.
I think it's hybrid, but yes, I think running it locally. This is Apple's one contribution to this space was
it's built in.
That matters a lot. And the more you can do locally, the better it's going to be.
And well, I don't know if it'll be better, but it'll be better for them. I mean, I don't think it's sustainable.
I think it will be better. Just from a latency perspective, right? I mean, assuming that stuff is local, what you need.
Yeah, except for that part where the folks that are leading this are all cloud companies.
Right.
There's some motivation problems.
Yeah.
Well, but here's an interesting thing that may be true of Apple eventually, but it's true today of Google and Microsoft. They're both building AI processors.
Yeah.
For both spaces, right? And the tensor processor that Google has on their phones is related in some way to the tensor processor, right? They have in the data center. I mean, I bet there's some interesting overlap there.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a race for standard interfaces so that your code runs well on that device as well. But at least initially, it's going to be the vendors. Who runs Tensor best on Android? Google.
Yeah.
I have to say, though, when I bought my new laptop, I bought it with as much, like 4 terabytes of storage and the fastest NPU. This is the Apple M3 Max and a fast NPU because I hope it's my dream to run these models locally. By the way, right now,
that's what you told she who must be obeyed anyway.
Yeah. I think that the problem, of course, is going to be these models are ginormous and you can't, and they're not open, many of them. So
the LLMs are. There are many other models that aren't.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And it may not be LLMs that win.
There's lots of local, especially open source, like lots of local.
I'm using Llama, which is Facebook's, which was initially leaked, and then I think they opened it.
Is it Microsoft Phi 2?
I guess I should look at the models I have on here. I'm using something called ChatGPT for All.
You should be using Windows AI Studio.
Or I could use that if I happen to use a Windows machine.
You do have a Windows machine in your hands with an NPU in it. It's called a Mac.
Oh, that's true. Right. In fact, it runs Windows quite nicely, so I can do it all in the.
It's a Visual Studio. Actually, yes, it's a Visual Studio Code extension or plugin or whatever they call it there. For some reason, every product has to have a different name for this. Brad was bugging me about this today. I've never even looked at it yet, but you could try that.
I think open source may, in a way, be kind of the future of all of this, right? Or no?
It's hard to know.
Yeah.
At the same time, you do have how are people using this? And what tools do you want to put in the hands of anybody versus doing a little gatekeeping for safety?
Right.
Yeah.
These are the models.
We're trying to keep the porn at bay, Leo. That's all it is. Just trying to keep the porn at bay.
You can do AI porn? Now we're talking.
Yeah.
So this has quite a few available models. Mistral Open Orca, Mistral Instruct. Some of the differences are.
What is this thing? What is this?
This is called GPT for All. It's a open source client for a local model. Falcon Turbo ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo ChatGPT 4. You don't run locally. You actually have to have an API key for that. Right. So so I've installed some models.
But 3.5 Turbo is local.
Is it? Let's see.
I didn't think so.
You need an API key. It says
you need an API key for that as well.
So those are neither of the ChatGPTs are local. A lot of these Orca 2 is trained by Microsoft, can be run locally, cannot be used commercially. And Orca 2 full is 6.86 gigabytes. They're pretty big.
That's but still tolerable. That big.
Yeah, that's why I bought it.
Terabytes are big. Gigabytes are.
Once you got to get up to Call of Duty size before we start calling it big.
No, these
108
are all
gigabytes.
All in the gigabyte. But these are all models. These are all mostly.
Yeah, but that gives you what you need just to at least kind of experiment and figure out what's going on.
Falcon, and then I'm adding to it. I'm adding documents because I'm trying to create my Lisp expert on this thing. Don't when you laugh at me, it hurts me. It hurts my soul.
Hey, you're the one that brought a Mac on Windows Weekly, buddy. I'm just saying.
And Lisp.
Just saying.
It always has to be one.
And we've talked about this before, but it's like, this is the return of the expert system.
It is. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's just sort of a blast from the past.
I have a new friend who's works at an AI company. He's kind of an AI genius and has worked at Google and Microsoft. And I asked him, I said, well, if I wanted to learn how to code some of my own, he uses Python, but he studied Lisp in college and Scheme. I said, can I do it in Lisp? He says, nobody's writing code anymore, Leo. You let the AI write the code. It's all about prompts.
You're right. Yeah, your code now is prompt shape.
Yeah, he did not. He said, don't bother learning the code fundamentals. He said, just get better at prompting. And of course, you have to be able to read the code and integrate it. But he said,
you're more of an editor.
You're an editor.
That doesn't mean I don't want to get you another one of those old symbolics machines from the 1980s.
Oh, you know how slow they are compared to this?
Oh, man, are you kidding?
It's really sad.
So anywho,
the reason they died.
We track this back.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to turn off my mic now. It's okay.
No, I don't.
It's okay.
Do an AI on a Mac, and I don't know what happened anymore.
I'm going to put on my toque and go home. Bye. See y'all later.
So I think we talked about the Intel Meteor Lake stuff last week, right?
Last week, yeah.
And I don't know if I brought this up, but since the show, I did write an article about this because I talked to an old friend from Microsoft who now works at Intel, and he told me a bunch of things.
So the big deal with Meteor Lake was they did the mobile chipset first, right? That was the thing.
It was the thing, but actually there's no desktop chipset.
So it's not that they did it first. This is all there.
So the 14th gen, which they're not calling it really, although it is the 14th gen, there will only be mobile chipsets. They consolidated down from 3 kind of SKU families, U, P, and H, and now have 2. So P is gone. P was that one they only had for the 12th and 13th gen when they started doing hybrid chipsets. There's a new GPU, Arc GPU, which by the way is actually optional. So you can ship Meteor Lakes with the old, whatever, the Iris Xe graphics. You can also do a dedicated GPU. But Arc is their version of kind of what Apple and Qualcomm do, where this is all in die together. And so this chip has CPU section, GPU section, NPU section, et cetera.
Right. They're emulating the M1.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, I was very interested because remember, I brought this up a couple of times. It was curious to me they were going to do mobile first, but it's mobile only. And the point here is they want to get NPUs out into the world and anticipation.
Well, I would also argue, listen, you use the mobile chipset obviously for Ultrabooks, but you also use them for all the mini PCs too.
Yep. Yeah. Right. And I don't have this in front of me, but actually I had kind of forgotten this, but all of Intel's chipset families, U, H, whatever, have multiple derivatives. And there was no, it's not this one. There was an all-in-one computer I got this year that had I think it was a K processor. I'm like, what? I didn't look it up. I'm like, what is this thing? And it's a desktop chipset. It may not, they skip generations, I think, but it was designed specifically for small form factor computers where, thermals are an issue, but it is a desktop class chip. But anyway, they announced U and H series Meteor Lake chips this past week or whenever that was. For the most part, it's actually the H series, which are the higher end ones. So these are going to be kind of high end premium computers, gaming computers.
I mean, for first of any generation set, you go high end because the only people who want it are the people who pay the premium. This is how you pay off die sets.
Yeah, right. So the other thing, and I have to follow up on this, the guy I talked to told me that they were also updating the Evo brand, which I don't think people understand, but Evo started as a brand for Intel. It's another way you can have a sticker on your computer, right? You can have an Evo sticker. Everyone loves those.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So the Evo brand started as a way to kind of certify that the computer met certain qualifications, performance, battery life, uptime, or instant wake speed, et cetera, et cetera. And it came about, not coincidentally, right after Apple announced the M1, because they wanted something they could show people and say, look, this will give you the best possible experience.
Right.
I don't believe it has been updated since then, but now it has been updated. This guy told me it really hadn't been, but there's a whole set of specifications now related to the MPU and some other factors. So there's kind of a more stringent set of specifications or qualifications that PC makers have to make or meet to have their computer be qualified as Evo now. In this, I think it's probably third gen. They don't really call it that, but I think it is a new spec for these core ultra chipsets. So kind of interesting.
So now you start thinking about, like, what would this look like plugged into an ATX board? Like, anybody who's using a desktop PC for the most part, either it's archaic or you like building your own machines.
Yeah.
And you want to pick a high-end cooler. You want the extra space. Maybe you're into the blinky lights inside your case. Like, you do you.
So,
and these larger chips lend themselves to like a daughter board mount and a big cooler, which then says, hey, now use your smart firmware to crank the gigahertz.
I'm actually wondering if they won't, in fact, be modular is not a great word, but let's just say modular in the sense that just like you could add a math coprocessor back in the 386SX days or whatever, that maybe it's going to be like that. I'm also, I should say part of the whole schedule thing is that next year, when we wrap around to the fall next year, they're going to be back on schedule. So the 15th gen will have both types of chips. And we'll see. So there won't be a desktop version of this. And I've gotten questions from people who said, well, I mean, what about us? Like, we use desktop chips. Like, what if we wanted to do this? I've never seen this out in the world, but there are essentially what you're saying, like, or these kind of data cards for MPUs you can add to 13th gen desktop Intel CPUs, but you have to have a motherboard that supports, you have to have all this stuff.
Right.
I don't even know how you would get one, but it is a thing. The computer, Richard, that you just bought is notable because it is the only, I believe, 13th gen Intel mobile CPU that has an MPU, and that's an add-on. It's an add-on to
the daughter board
or whatever. Yeah. So that's how that works.
I just wonder if the motherboards are going to evolve to adapt. Like ATX and ATX Mini are all you need. There are macro, like giant ATX boards, but for what? Like, it's kind of insane at this point.
Yeah. Well, maybe for this now, right? Who knows? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I almost wonder, like, this flashes to me like S100 bus. Like, what if the chipset was on the bus?
Everything was on the bus. Yes, exactly.
Like now your chassis,
PCI Express, 3 point whatever or something could be. Yes, this was the whole computer, right?
Yeah. And then it's just like switching, and we talk about sustainable machines. Right. Like, what if that backplane is sufficient and now you're just changing chipsets?
Interesting. You could even replace the backplane and plug in everything else. It would still work. That would be good too.
Move it over to a new backplane. Exactly. Yep. So if you really want to, right now, reality for me as a guy who builds a lot of his own machines is once I've seeded RAM and a CPU on that motherboard, that's it for that motherboard. Because after 2 years, moving anything on that, it's going to break. It's going to become less reliable. Like,
I mean, my God, other than I would guess you could add RAM, assuming you didn't.
Even then, I'm really careful playing with pins of whatsoever. So I'll often, when I'm ready to upgrade a machine, I'll take that entire assembly out. I'll build it around a new chassis for a neighbor. Here you go. And I should have the kid build the machine. Right. So we'll change out the fans because they wear, but the cooler stays on. RAM, I always max the RAM anyway, so that's nothing to do there. So give them a new power supply, new drive in a new case. They've got their own machine, a couple gens old. Because as soon as you unseat any of that stuff, as soon as you play with it all, it's wrecked. The machine will never be reliable.
Right.
And I just wonder if we can't get to this sort of long duration machine where you just change out parts, and as long as they're actually changeable.
I was just looking at framework. I was just thinking about, they have a bigger, I think a 16-inch device now. And I'm like, maybe, but why not a desktop, right? Same idea.
Well, and it really comes down to, will the manufacturers make us the backplane board? Like that whole mindset is interesting. Right. And it's sort of it falls into the right to repair. It falls into, sustainability, replacing minimum that's necessary for future features. Like, it's interesting.
You know what you're reminding me of? Surface Hub. Remember when they were going to have the chassis able to be pulled out and replaced? They never did it.
And then the pandemic happened, and just kidding.
Yeah.
It was a good idea.
I mean, Surface Hubs exist, but they did not sell the way they did not become the product that Microsoft expected, right?
No.
Surface Hub became a replacement for projectors.
What she's describing is something that could be applied to all-in-one computers too, because the important, not a PC's case, but the important part is the screen, right? If the rest of it was a plug-in kind of a module, you could replace all the guts and still make use of the screen.
Which is what we do with mini PCs mounted on Visa 100 mounts, right? Yeah. That's pretty normal. That you pick your screen and some interface pieces, and what some machine just bolts onto the back of that with 4 screws, and then you're done.
This thing behind my head is a HP all-in-one that you can kind of carry around like a briefcase because, and
but that was that 20-inch. I remember it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you can use it if the computer ever fails or whatever, it works as a display too, right? You can, which is something all-in-one should at least do. That should be the failback. If the iMac dies, you can at least use it as a beautiful screen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't. I think
I'm just saying you should, but
you should. I think I'm testing. Let's play this right now.
Okay. God, is that Mariah Carey? What's happening?
The snow is falling, the lights are shining bright. I can't wait to catch up and hold you tight.
This is almost a spoken word song.
Everybody.
Hold on, I'm going to hold up my LED up keyboard. There you go. Oh boy. They bring us to concerts. People hate that. I wouldn't say this is great. Or maybe needs to continue. But that's too bad.
It's a Gen 1 song.
Sounds exactly
I would
in
up the tempo on
1980
it and then throw it in the trash because it's terrible.
It sounds exactly what in 1980 we would have thought AI music would sound like in 2023.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is this new age music? Is that what I'm listening to?
I have tweeted it if you want a copy for yourself. I only tweet once every 20 years, but this is my holiday tweet to all of you.
Love it. Oh, since you've been gone, they don't call them tweets anymore, by the way. I also refuse to acknowledge that.
I X'd it on Shitter.
That's it. Nailed it. So you do know the right terms.
I know the new terminology. I just don't. I choose not to use it.
Just don't care. Exactly.
No. Yeah. Exactly.
So it worked. I mean, I guess it's pretty cool, right? Celine
the
Dion.
capability is cool. The song, that song in particular. Plus, you can't really. What you want to do is have a conversation with the thing where you say, "Okay, now turn up the tempo a little bit."
Well, I can't.
Here's
I
the
can't. I'm going to go back.
Oh, you can?
Oh, okay. Sure. I'm going to go back and
make it jazzy.
Make it jazzy. Okay, let's do that. Let's do it. Make it.
You know how you
jazzy.
do that with the images? You can be like, okay, change the background, change this, change that. Right.
Can you make that song jazzy?
Make it jazzy.
And upbeat, right? We want a little.
I like
more
it, but
upbeat.
more jazz hands.
Yes.
Okay.
You missed out on like a little industrial electronic music version of it. It'd be fun.
Right. A disco. I want an EDM.
Make it a rap song. Rap Christmas
okay,
song.
it can only do one thing every 10 minutes. So just,
Right, exactly.
Okay.
You're lucky it's taking that little amount of time.
It's awesome.
They asked, why didn't you post on Mastodon? I would have, but I didn't get. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, but I can't change the parameters of your song once it's submitted.
Oh, so you have to start over.
That's what I'm talking about. It's
I'll
not
have to just start over. Okay.
I know. But then the lyrics are all going to be different.
That's good, maybe. That might be a plus.
Mary Jo Foley, we missed you. All right. Yeah, they didn't offer Mastodon. I would have shared it on Mastodon. I was just trying to do the thing.
I had some OnlyFans porn offered to me on Mastodon the other day, by the way.
Well, we'll fix that. I deleted everything. Every time, just report it, Paul.
Not good.
Just report it. I saw that, and I deleted.
I did. Of course I did.
Killed a bunch of accounts. They all came from Mastodon Social, where they don't have a whole lot of moderation, but we fixed it.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
I wasn't complaining. I was just
sorry.
Leo, since you're the guy that runs the server I get for free, I'm just wondering, can we do some live customer service?
Yes, right now. Yeah.
No, I just thought of it because you said Mastodon.
Okay, I'm going to fix this. So I'm going to copy that prompt and add it, but make it jazzy and upbeat. Anything? Or you want rap? Would you prefer rap?
No, I would
do
not.
a rap.
Very much.
Do a rap Christmas. Come on.
Do it. And who do you like?
It's the 50th anniversary of hip hop, isn't it?
It is.
I want it to be like that Run DMC song that's in the beginning of Die Hard, but have it be about Mary Jo.
All right. I just said, but do it in the rap style of Run DMC. So I'll get back to you in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Mary Jo, do you have a Twitter handle anymore? I couldn't find you.
Yeah. I'm still at Mary Jo Foley on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
No, it's okay.
Link you.
I'm also on Threads, but I still feel like Threads isn't quite ready.
Yeah. None of this is ready. Yeah.
It's not even slightly ready. They don't have an API. I can't auto post to it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't exist. I mean, you know.
They are going to do some things I like on Threads, like supposedly make it easy to import your followers and things like that if they get away with it. So it'll be good.
That would be good.
I know.
That's the problem. Starting over from scratch is a nightmare.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody wants to build a social graph anymore. I mean, that's the one thing Threads got right was you could import your graph from Instagram at least.
Yeah.
So one thing they got wrong is they spam it all over Facebook and Instagram now, and I get Threads posts in between my photos and Instagram. It's like, guys, it's already bad enough with the ads. Like, what?
Yeah.
If I wanted to look at text, I'd be somewhere else.
No, it comes pre-insurtified.
Yes, exactly. For your enjoyment. Okay. Anyway, to wrap up the hardware bit, I was surprised to discover there is already an Intel Core Ultra based Chromebook, right?
Yeah.
So Chromebook, isn't it?
Well, but Chromebook has this new Chromebook Plus spec, right? Which are the premium devices, which in the Chromebook space means like $500, $700. Like they're not that bad. I don't know the pricing of this one. It's an Asus. But it has
a high performance machine that won't run any software. This is good.
Oh, see, you're a Chromebook hater. This is. I am now going to dedicate the rest of the year.
All I had to do was own one to learn.
Well, except it's gotten better. They've actually gotten quite a bit better. Really? Anyway, good processor, fast RAM, lots of high-speed M2 SSD storage, high-resolution screen, DCI-P3 color space.
How much? We don't know.
We don't know yet, but it'll be under 1,000. And that's the thing. Like this computer in the PC space would probably be $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 8 megapixel front-facing webcam. Right?
Can I run Windows on it?
You can run it in. There is a Parallels experience. It's not as good as on the Mac. You don't get all that kind of fun stuff you get on the Mac, like coherence and whatnot. But you can run it that way. You can run Windows 365.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Anyway, just throwing it out there. Cool. It's not going to be just PCs.
Okay, I'll believe you. I'm surprised.
All right. So now at Mary Jo's request, and it was a good idea. I'm not sure I would have thought of this explicitly, but this is the last live show, right? We're doing this year. So maybe we should take a look back and take a look forward. Like, what do we expect to see next year?
Yeah.
Next year is implementation year.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
We have been hand-waving the snot out of Copilot for the past 9 months.
Cory Doctorow, who coined that term in certification, has been in the news a lot this past year, not just for that. He's written another book, right? But he was talking about AI, and he described it as a bubble. And I saw this in a headline. I said, is he going to jump the shark here? But no. So he's a smart guy. And the way he kind of described this is that I think a bubble is crack. Like everyone moves to this one area, and then it crashes, and it goes away. But he says, no, sometimes bubbles leave useful things behind.
Yes.
And AI will be that kind of bubble, right? And the question is going to be, what degree will AI actually impact us all, whether it's productivity or, creativity, like Leo's trying to do with the song, or programming, like whatever, like what's the actual impact? There's going to be some delta between the hype and the reality, right? What's the phrase you always use? The trough of despair.
Yes. Well, so the Gartner, peak of overinflated expectations.
Yeah. So, but maybe it could be like the recession where we're heading for that, but it actually kind of evens out and we're okay. I mean,
I would argue that every one of the AI winters left behind useful residuals. It's just the folks that created that AI moment, which were mostly scientists getting funding. The winter came when they could get funding anymore because they'd run their course for what was available. And then the engineers came in behind. So look, this has been the year of the engineer trying to get their hand around. But the scientists are done, right? Hinton has already said, like, generative AI has run its course. If we're going to go somewhere else. But that's just like, oh, well, look, the cement works. There's nothing new to do in this cement. So let's move on. The folks who actually build bridges with it.
Oh my God. I was going to say, hold on a second. That's like a Isaac Asimov Foundation moment, because the truth is there was cement that was made by the Romans that is actually better than the cement we're using today. Yeah. And this is something we lost. We now know that it's only because it interacts with salt water, creates internal crystallization.
Yes,
but that's we're getting too far off on the metaphor here.
But you know what we what we do,
but with a supply to AI, right?
You know what we do, is a rap song dedicated to Mary Jo Foley. I like to think of it as Christmas with You.
Snow falling down in this merry little town. I'm sipping high cocoa.
This is the whitest rap song ever made, which is ironic.
Just how your laughter so sweet. But this Christmas, Mary Jo Foley, you'll be back on our street.
Wow.
Which one was worse? Version 1?
I like it much better.
This one is more aggressively worse.
It's Christmas with you, the happiest I've been. Mary Jo Foley, welcome home. Let the sleigh bells ring.
Oof.
Ladies and gentlemen, a machine made that.
Yeah, I
sounds
love
like it.
Is the auto tuning a feature? Like, how do you auto tune a synthetic voice?
It's like a song by the Jets from the 1980s. You know those guys? Or like the guy. God, what are those bands? Those terrible bands.
All the boys.
Like kind of pop.
It sounds like pop it sounds like in excess. No, not in excess.
You're thinking NSYNC.
NSYNC. Right? That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, the Backstreet Boys.
I said in the style of Run DMC, I think it missed a little bit.
It missed. Yeah, sure. It missed Run and DC.
Yeah. I put that one on Mastodon for those who care. It's on our twit.social. I am Leo at Leo on twit.social. If you want to add it to your collection, which I really think you should. I mean,
this is turning into the worst K-Tel album ever made.
It is.
I just like it.
Snow falling down.
It's like K-Tel, but we couldn't get licenses to any of the music.
It's elevator music.
So we get this stuff instead. And it's like, oh God, what's happening?
I think if you listen to it, I'm just thinking 4 or 5 times, it'll become. It'll become.
This
catchy.
would be construed as a war crime under the War Crime Act.
Yeah, play it over and over at high volume.
They played this at Waco, didn't they? To drive them out of the building? Wasn't this when they played?
When the U.S. military was in Nicaragua, didn't they play this to Noriega to get him?
They forced him to listen over and over. Yeah.
Exactly. Please make it stop.
Okay.
All right. So that's not just something to look forward to going in the next year.
Yeah. But you know what?
All right, but I'm sorry, Mary Jo.
I want to say something on Copilots because I was talking to Richard about this and I'm like so burnt out on them. So I almost feel like I know. I almost feel like their PR strategy worked against them as time went on. So they started out by pre-announcing 1 million Copilots. Like a couple of them shipped, most of them didn't ship. Even this like Microsoft 365 Copilot being generally available, it's not really generally available.
No,
it's available to
I know
very
it's crazy.
few people.
Yep.
Right. Security Copilot never shipped. OneDrive Copilot never shipped. SharePoint Copilot never shipped. Right?
Sorry to interrupt real quick, but Richard, did you tell her what we were told about all the Copilots inside of Microsoft? Did you?
There's hundreds, right? There's hundreds of them.
There's 117 was the count we got.
17.
And that's not so. That tells you how many are going to get announced next year.
No. So that was the thing. Yeah, there was an agreement that maybe we needed to slow this down and reverse a little bit.
Good.
There were too many.
But this was Uncle Satya telling his entire company, every team, look at this technology and see how you'd implement it.
And every team responded literally.
But they had to respond, right?
Yes.
Like it was a requirement.
Well, even on the eve of Ignite, one of the team, I can't really say it was, doesn't matter, but one of the teams, finally someone complained up the chain and said, guys, we are about to announce 2 Copilots that are literally identical. We cannot do this. Stop. And someone pulled it, said, yeah, you're right.
That's
actually, let's not do this.
That's
but this thing existed through the chain all year long. And it was, they had the announcement ready. They had the product name, they had everything. And they were like, stop.
Yeah.
Like we really need to think about this.
It hadn't hit that top tier yet, right? Each product team went inward. And this was a really good idea from Satch's perspective too, because everybody did something a little bit different. Like you're discovering what these things are capable of in all these different islands of creativity. Now, whether or not you put it into a product and put it in front of people, that's a different conversation entirely. Right. And the answer is generally no. It's consolidate the innovations, see where we've got, because like,
where can we add the most value? Right.
Yeah. Why in the world would you have a SharePoint Copilot when you have M365? Right.
Right.
So maybe, Mary Jo, next year will be good news for you, because I would even say even as recently as Ignite, though, that final branding consolidation where, remember, you would actually ask me, I think it was after September, I had written something and you said, where did you get this?
I know. I saw something he wrote and I'm like, okay, I want to know where you got that from. I'm not saying you plagiarized it. I'm trying to figure out, where did you find that wording?
They eventually explicitly announced it at Ignite, which was that, not the naming part, but Microsoft Copilot is the foundation. This is where the extensibility model starts. You build off of that with Bing and Microsoft 365, Windows, whatever, and compatible with OpenAI. And she's like, where did you see this? And I'm like, it was at the September event. I don't remember.
It was. But then here's the other problem. I know this because I write a lot about the enterprise in my job. All the enterprise Copilots have nothing to do with that, right? Like the Copilots and Dynamics are not the same at all as the Copilots in Microsoft 365.
No, I think it's notable. They've never...
Fabric Copilots, not the same at all.
Because you don't necessarily... Honestly, I think that, aside from the general use of the internet, I'm out in the world doing whatever stuff. When you think about it from a company perspective, you're inside of an organization, whatever it is, and you're doing on some project, whatever it might be. You really want it to be that cut down model that we've been talking about. We want that part of the Microsoft graph that matters to what we're doing right now. We don't want the whole internet. And I feel like the smaller you make it and the more finite that data set is, I mean, they're all finite technically, but the more accurate it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
AI will work better for you in an organization, or maybe someday as an individual, because of the smaller data set.
Yeah.
What you want from an internal Copilot to the company data is with, say, I don't know when it doesn't know.
Yes,
to only derive information from the sources that it has.
The way I described AI to a guy at the gym who asked me about this and about Microsoft and how they were going to do in the future, I said, AI is wonderful for summarizing things, but if you ask it what 1 + 1 is, it might respond with G.
Right.
It's weirdly bad at certain things.
It is.
The one I did for the Rotary Club was I asked ChatGPT to write me the compare and contrast an omelet made with chicken eggs and with camel eggs.
Yikes!
And it
just went to town. In fact, it recommended the second one, and you were like, "This sounds good."
A camel egg omelet, very special.
Yep.
Yes,
a little gamey.
Yeah, so I think next year there's going to be a lot of people buying Copilots. Like, I think Microsoft's earnings are going to be super interesting next year to see how fast that grows. But also, they're going to have to start shipping some of these things they announced and like making them real, right?
Rationalize them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Microsoft 365 Copilot alone needs to expand pretty dramatically as far as
to small businesses and consumers. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but only if it's useful. Like, I think they got to cook it for a while. I mean, you're also waiting for, just like we had with ChatGPT, with the lawyers abusing it and getting in trouble with the court, you're going to have somebody blaming business failure on the software.
So both of you will know that I have spoken about how hard it has been over the years to keep track of Microsoft 365, because every month it would come out this giant blog post. Yep. And if you just look at something simple like Microsoft Word, which is funny to describe as simple, but there are multiple versions of it. And then there's thousands and thousands of features. And then there's this matrix of where those features kind of are. So web, mobile, desktop, 2 versions of desktop, right? And they'll announce a new feature for Microsoft Word in November 2021, whatever year. And it's dictation and the ability to take an audio recording and make a script from it. It's only in the web version. It's still only in the web version. It's kind of a weird problem. And when I look at the Microsoft Copilot features they have announced for Microsoft 365, I guess, I'm not sure how to say that. And you look at the individual apps, like here are the features we're doing in Word, here are the features in Excel. They kind of read like that feature, don't they? Mm-hmm. They're like a bundle of things that they would have maybe released anyway.
Yes.
Right. So and it makes it kind of hard. So now you're saying, hold on a second. You have a standalone Microsoft Office product, which you don't even want to sell, but you kind of have to. You've got the Microsoft 365 subscriptions where all the new features go. But now, not all the new features, right? Because now we have this other subscription that sits on top of it. And now what you're saying is to get these other new features, I need this second subscription, right? Like we're kind of, they are kind of bifurcating the market even further. Yeah. And it makes it harder to know where features are. Because that feature, the AI feature, maybe is only going to be on a Windows computer when you have 2 subscriptions and you have an MPU or something, right? It's gotten even harder.
It has.
So. But it's also a new product that's going to be built separately for the foreseeable future. Yeah. Eventually, it gets bundled in. Eventually, language understanding in software becomes a normal part of software. If you stop calling it a separate feature, it's just software.
That's right.
And by the way, mouse support was special. Like, once upon a time it was on the box. It actually said this software supports mice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, actually, what you're also describing is the standalone version of Office, right? So there will be an Office 2024 or whatever 25, whatever the next version is, and it will be some level set that before was features that were part of the subscription and aren't in 2019 or whatever the new one is.
And that's the new normal build pattern: is you test the features as part of the cloud subscription, and then you cut a version.
And honestly, given the churn we see today, I mean, I'm fairly technical. I'm a technology enthusiast. Even I'm getting kind of burned out on like all the churn. It's like, guys, can we slow down for a second? I mean, at some point, I need to get work done with this product too. I'm not playing a video game. Like I need to, write words.
And you're speaking truth out there. Like the .NET people are struggling with so many a version every year. Turns out to be a lot.
I know. And does it warrant it? Is a great. A platform like .NET, you could make a very good argument for maybe it's every other year, guys.
Well, that's what a lot of people, then they made these LTS versions, long-term support, which is why
couldn't they just all be like that? Just do one every 3 years and have it be LTS, whatever.
With you. And it's, again, I think we're all learning here. It's an experimentation. Remember when we got a new version of Windows 10 every 15 minutes?
Yeah.
And we bound it to software features too. Like I had developers trying to tell IT folks, I need you to upgrade our version of Windows 10 so I can deploy my app. And they're like,
why is there a 3D objects entry in my file manager I can't get rid of? Why is there a photo gallery entry today that you can't get rid of? You can get rid of both, but not in the UI.
We keep presuming there's a plan when they're just trying to figure stuff out, right?
Yeah.
I stopped thinking there was a plan about 8 months ago. that was my
line. It's like, we're not organized enough to be as evil as you want us to be.
Right. I bet if we could call that office, the phone would just ring. There's no way.
Don't know. Really don't know. I don't see the hardware following seriously until the killer app exists. And
we talked about this, right? This notion that maybe the killer app wasn't a killer app, but was rather, did we talk about this?
Ends up being a host of capabilities.
Yeah. Different people like latch onto the one thing. But I always think of, normal, non-technical people, my mother, my wife, whatever. And I think, not that they would ever be caught dead in the computer section of a Best Buy, but I'm imagining it. What would it take for someone like that to want to upgrade?
Right.
Yeah. And it's got to be this competitive advantage. Like one of the arguments here is those original companies that were able to get the early bits of M365 and their logos were plastered all over Ignite. Right. Is they're going to be spitting out these case studies that say 30%, performance improvement, more work done. I've certainly seen this in software development. Right. Like the numbers are now coming back. PMs I know that are showing these folks are checking in more code and they're fixing it. They need to fix it less often when they work with GitHub Copilot. Like these are real productivity gains. Mm-hmm. Well, this is what we expected 24. That for Office folks, for info workers.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, it has to be real, right? I mean, it's a little. It might be a little harder for the Office stuff just because everyone does different types of work and have little specialties or whatever.
We might have to scream test this. Like it may be the only way. It's like let them go for 6 months and shut it off and listen.
Yeah.
Right? Like that might be the only way to know for sure is when people will refuse to.
Do they miss it when it's gone? Yeah, that's a great test, by the way. Sometimes I'll go back to a previous version of a product and do I miss stuff? And if you don't, something went wrong there.
Yeah,
because you should.
And I said in IT we call it the scream test. It's like, has anybody used this report? Shut it off and listen to the screams.
Nice.
No, it's okay. Leave it off.
At Microsoft, the scream test is we just randomly deliver software and don't tell anybody. And you have 3 computers that all have different configurations, even though you did them exactly the same. You know?
Yeah, I don't think this is going to happen as quickly as we hope. But until the moment you have that competitive advantage, right?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know. In my case, and Mary Jo would probably agree, I think she kind of expressed this earlier, I would be okay if it slowed down, right?
Yeah.
I think we were on like a runaway train this year.
Yeah. Well, Microsoft wanted to get into the gestalt, right? Like, let's face it, everybody knows what Copilot means now. They've hijacked that word successfully. I think Satya is taking this very personally. This is his first really leading a brand new product by Microsoft.
Yeah.
This is his legacy.
It's so high profile. I mean, it's
by choice. They've chosen to make it this high profile.
Yep.
I think them waking up to be this aggressive is more impressive than if someday they actually start doing Ignite again with, tens of thousands of people. It's like it's just as unexpected. Like it's neat. Like as following Microsoft as long as we all have. I mean, it's been a while.
We'll see what happens with events in 2024. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm just comparing it. Things that kind of went by the wayside there for a little while.
Yeah. But are we going to get a new version of Windows next year? At least they're going to admit there's going to be.
So I would say that Intel releasing these chips the way they did says yes to that question. The only question is what we call it, right?
Yeah. I don't think they can call it Windows 12. I
agree.
It makes no sense.
After spending this whole year waiting for Windows 12 and then reading what Zach wrote, a few weeks ago, I thought, this debate makes sense. It's rebranding now. Yeah. After you've talked to AI incessantly for a year. Yeah. And added it to Windows 11 and then saying, okay, now we're moving on to the next thing. It's like now you've got like 3 versions of Windows to support. And where do you cut off the AI features?
So do you just call it Copilot?
Yeah,
I know, right.
Well, that's the thing. It is.
That would really confuse things if they did that, but I can see him doing it.
Well, right?
Well, I mean, that's what Stevie Batish compared it to, right? The orchestrated this kind of AI everywhere notion where the great example of an orchestrator we have today is the Windows shell, and it's like, well, and Satya Nadella didn't mean this literally, but he said, what he said, Copilot will become like the start button, right? The place we start to do everything. You start with this prompt. Now, to me, I mean, being pedantic about that, I think, we're going to go back to MS-DOS and start typing again. That's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to interact with the computer. But he didn't really mean
Emacs,
it that way.
baby, it's the future.
Make sure it's a / not a backward slash. Don't screw that one up. Or you delete the entire file. Did you just run Fdisk? What are you doing? But I think the point was simply that everything's going to change, right? So apps have been changing for a long time. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, AI will cobble together whatever services and apps are necessary to achieve this thing you're doing. And that becomes like an app, but it's not the app that we think of today, right?
It's not that anybody wrote a book on the future of Microsoft. That Gates described this concept of an intelligent agent a long time ago.
Yes. Right.
So we've got software that can understand language and it's looking at what's in your inbox and what's on your schedule.
Right.
It should be preparing information for you as you sit down to work that
Was
day.
that software called Gmail, man? I miss him.
I think it has to be called Windows 11 something, or it's definitely not 12, especially because they just announced extended security update availability for Windows 11.
Right.
I mean, Windows 10 to go with Windows 11.
Yeah, I just don't think they're going to. And of course, now that I've said that they will, but yeah.
No, you know what they could do? They could have Windows 11 side by side with some new Windows thing called Windows something, right? Yeah. And if you get the new hardware with the new AI processors in it, you get that version. But everybody else doing normal work and who's regular people keeps running Windows 11.
One of the arguments I made a million years ago was that Microsoft could have shipped 2 versions of Windows, one for consumers, one for businesses that ran exactly the same software, but had very different UIs where the consumer version could be very friendly and, simple and whatever. And they never did that. And honestly, I think the reason they don't do stuff like that is because training, right? You don't want someone to be sitting there at work and they've learned how the system works. They go home and like, what is this? It's completely different.
And even developers didn't want it either.
Yeah, 10 to 11 to me is not a big deal, but for some people, it's a bridge too far, right? And they're going to do that again.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see how they brand it, what it looks like.
Right.
I think there definitely is going to be a version, some new Windows in 2024, and how if they call it new Windows or don't call it new Windows, whatever. But
speaking of which, and you have both of these products listed in the notes. But dear God, Microsoft, can I help you with something? Don't call it anything new.
Yeah.
You can't put new in the name. It's not new Outlook. It's not new Teams. It's just Teams. It's just please stop. I know there are too many Outlooks. I get that. I'm at the lead of the charge on that complaint. But seriously, this thing that is new now will not be new in 2 months. Yeah. And stop. Yeah. You know,
I think 12 is a fine name. You're not going to be able to use 13, just like you couldn't use 9.
Right.
So I think they're going to go 12 before they really do everything.
Or you say just the thing we talked about with 10, just call it Windows.
Just
get rid of the numbers.
They almost did that, right?
Well, that was what 10 was supposed to be. And then Apple got all uppity with a new version number. And all of a sudden they got to do something. Right. Now, I think the version number thing and the routine release of new product is a requirement. I think the customer expects it. The shareholder expects it.
The OEMs want it for sure.
The OEM wants it. So there needs to be a called
something you can market. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Remember the new Surface Pro? Yep. That product that was not called Surface Pro 5.
Right.
And they learned that lesson very quickly. There has not been another one of those naming mistakes.
Because it actually hurts sales.
Yep. Stupid.
Yeah.
I think I don't know, guys. I'm going to go on the side of I think it's going to be Windows 12.
You do, huh? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it might be AI edition.
Sure.
Yeah. You know. Oh, yeah. Windows 11 AI edition. There we go.
Like it.
And we'll all call it 12 because it's less letters to get the same result.
Do you think, though, that the word AI might scare some people off? I mean, or is everybody used to it?
Or even just turn them off, right? Because of all the hype. Yeah. Yep.
And remember, there are still companies who ban ChatGPT. I mean, because of the loss of data. So I think that's maybe not going to be in the name.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's probably going to be an option.
I think you got to keep them simple. I honestly, I don't even Home and Pro, or, at least they kind of, Pro is a weird word, honestly, but
it was,
too complicated. Windows Vista, or they went off the rails, remember, with all the product editions.
Windows Me, come on. What about that one?
Ooh, yeah.
Windows Home Basic. Like, I'm a home user, but I'm even more basic than that. Thanks. Great. Do you drool? Yeah, you drool. You want basic.
Windows
for
idiots. Windows for dummies.
Yeah.
I was in the licensing section for the repository that, as an MVP, you have access to. And they literally have every variation of every version available to you.
Right.
And she must be, was looking over the shoulder because it was actually for her machine. And she's like, why are there so many? It says, these 3 were made by the EU.
Yeah, exactly.
These ones were made by...
there's the Korean versions. There's the N versions in Europe.
KN.
And there's the versions we don't see out in the world. I mean, there's a whole set of education SKUs
and the kiosk SKUs. And it's a lot.
Yep.
It is.
So... I don't know. I can't imagine them changing it, but
still doesn't compare to Microsoft 365. Just saying, but there are a lot of them.
Yeah. But speaking of new Teams and new Outlook, they're coming.
I'm going to guess the consensus is the same for everybody here. The new Outlook, not great for businesses yet, but they'll get it there. The new Teams seems like it's kind of done great, right? Like it's been pretty well received, right? Solves the problems. Yeah,
it's got a lot of problems still.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Well. Yeah. So we use it internally at Directions on Microsoft, and we've had all these weird things about sharing screens come up where if someone's sharing a screen, other people see a black box, or they can't share their screen, and it only is happening in the new Teams. And if you go into the forums, you see other people are having this. So there's still some things that need to be worked out.
But they're not popping up ads in front of your face as much as they used to. I really like that. It
looks almost the same as the other Teams, doesn't it?
One of my workstations now, when I run the new Teams client, all windows are just come out black, whether it's a share.
Okay, so that's what you're saying.
The web client works, but the regular client, and it's like, I've done nothing. It must have updated itself.
The three big things.
It seems to be uninstall it and install it again. Really.
Turn it off, turn it on.
Yeah.
The new Teams, significantly fewer resources used, which is great. Definitely. Better performance.
Gave up Electron. They moved away.
The big thing to me is it remembers my AV settings, right? Which were the old teams almost not every morning, three times a week. I'd have to, you're on the wrong mic. It's like, I haven't changed anything. Like, why does this thing keep changing? Right. They seem to have gotten on top of that. So to me, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I often wondered if that was because of updates. Like every time it updated, it would trash all the defaults.
It almost went back to the initial state. That could be. Yeah.
New Outlook, though, I've been using it. I've been forcing myself to use it, and it's got problems too. Like,
really, I think it's fine for consumers today.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll hear any business users who are like, "Oh yeah, no, this is it. I can't wait."
Businesses are like running, screaming from this, like scared, and it's not ready. And Microsoft knows it's not ready. They're going to do a very gradual cutover from the old Outlook for Windows to the new one.
That seems to be the whole methodology these days, right? With the whole toggle between new and old is, are you fine with this or does it frighten you? And then they instrument the snot out of it.
There's
how people are switching.
I don't think it was Ignite. It was before Ignite, but there was the Outlook team did like a chat thing online where they talked about the bar they need to meet before they'll even consider, forcing, business users to do this. It's years away, but they have a list of, this is like, we got all the feedback. The only thing we can't do is that old kind of COM plugin thing is not happening.
You're never going to do that. Right?
Never getting that. But I mean, basically all the features people are asking for, we're going to do all those things. And then we'll give you at least a year. And then we'll make it optional.
Isn't even there still. Is it?
No,
offline
it is.
support's still not there.
No, it's there.
It is there now? Okay. It wasn't until pretty recently.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we really are hitting the, Dyson-esque. It was easier to put Wi-Fi everywhere than it was to make a good offline client.
Yeah. Right.
Honestly, you sit down in the airplane, have Wi-Fi. Even if it isn't working, that's fine. You can still write your email. It looks vaguely Connect-ish.
Yeah. Right. And we'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so those two things, I think we're going to have a lot to debate about.
And we got to talk about Loop. What's the state of Loop?
I now have finally got my tenant configured so that Loop shows up as an option to install, but actually installing Loop is still a nuisance. You can get to the client side of Loop, the browser version of Loop easy enough.
Right. There's a Microsoft Store version of Loop that appeared without any announcement to this day. This was months ago, right?
Yeah.
And I assume you could connect it to a business or an MSA account.
You have to set it up into your tenant. And if your tenant is properly configured, then the Loop will just work. And by the way, you properly configured means setting a series of group policies with that are assigned to a particular group that you then put members into. And it's disturbing that I memorized this because I've done it like six times to try and make it work.
That's how that works. Yeah.
But there should be a button. Give people Loop.
It's right. It just enable Loop. Exactly.
Yeah. And why does I don't have to enable Word. Why do I have to enable Loop?
I mean, you feel like this is going to happen eventually, but I know it's like out, it's released, but it still feels very incomplete to me.
It does.
It's a pretty raw product, really.
We use Notion, as we're doing for the notes. It's mature. It works great. It seems really thin and light to me. The syncing capability in this thing is almost magical. Like it blows my mind. How well that works.
Yeah.
I know it's a high bar.
I'm now hitting between Notion with you, OneNote, which is all my old note stuff, and Loop, which is my new note stuff. And I now consciously moved all the whiskey notes over to Loop.
Yeah, just to get used to the interface and the one thing I
live in it regularly, right?
One of the things I would really like about Loop, one of the reasons I would want to go to it, other than I also have the OneDrive storage in the back end and yada yada, and all the things that come with Microsoft 365, is it uses Microsoft Word style keyboard shortcuts for applying styles to text. In Loop is Notion's a very different thing. You kind of have to do a / command, and then after the fact, there's kind of a bulky menu you can do to change things. But I've been using
a little time with the Loop mobile client. It'll make you hate yourself.
Oh no, I do. I can't use it. I literally I deleted it from my phone. It would never. Bad. All I had was a list of. It was one page of text. It was just waits for the machines at the gym. Yep. It's like, guys, there's nothing to sync. It's been sitting there for months, but it's like something went wrong.
You're playing Office tenant problems.
Yeah.
And so now the software won't.
No, but I'm talking like I look at my phone. Okay, this is the way I need for this machine. Put the phone up there. I do my whatever thing. Go to the next machine. I look at it. Goes, something went wrong. You're like, what? How did anything go wrong? I could have taken a screenshot and it would have been fine. Like,
I guarantee you, it's a tenant handshake problem. Like that's
it's terrible.
And this is the same problem that Outlook struggles with, right? It's like There's a set of rules living inside of the operating system related to security and authentication that overrides everything.
This is the slow boil that led to Loop was they created yet another platform. We just talked about Teams and Copilot as other examples of that. And this had to be right. There's a whole model of components and whatever. It got two-way, right? And I think of it as this goofy little note-taking app, basically, but it's a much bigger thing than that. And if this thing works out, this is what will obsolete, word processing and note-taking, dedicated note-taking apps, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot riding on it, but man, it's been years. Hasn't it been like 3 years? Is it 3 years?
I know. I remember when we first were talking about using it. Yeah. It's like 2 or 3 years.
I'd have to go look it up, but I remember using like a really, really early version of it with almost no UI and just being like, I don't understand what this thing is, but it was so so basic.
Oh, and it's got the same problem as Teams and a bunch of other products, which is, I think it's actually trying to be 3 different products at once. And one of them is a Notion competitor. Yeah.
And it was very disappointing when we first got the kind of end user UI. Like, this is Notion. Like, you made Notion. Like, dear God, do we need another Notion? That's what this is. It's Notion. And it is more than that, right? To be fair again, but from the end user perspective.
If we were all Teams centric, then you'd be using Loop components in Teams.
Inside of Teams. That's
another interface approach, right?
Yep. Yeah. And you can do it inside of Outlook if you wanted to. Exactly.
This is 21st century object linking and embedding. That's what this is.
Someday I will open Microsoft Word and it will say, would you like to change the default document format to be a loop component or something? And it's like,
now they won't tell you. You just will be a loop.
Yeah. Right. Why does it look weird?
Something's different somehow.
Right. Is it the same format? I mean, it's
no, it isn't. And this is something that Microsoft has had problems with over the years. The notable example being OneNote, which, when it has styles like Microsoft Word, and if you copy and paste it into a Word document or elsewhere, the thing you get looks very different from what it would look like if you had Word. If you had started with Word, like, even though they kind of look the same, they're not. It's not the same thing. It's not rendered the same way. Even Word on the web versus Word on a native app on your desktop is different. Like, I know it saves the docx, et cetera, but that thing you're looking at, the thing you're working in, is very different.
Let me take a little break.
You want to talk about Activision Blizzard? And
yes. I think a break before Activision Blizzard, because that will give people a chance to gear up, put themselves in the proper mindset and all of that. Okay. So good news, Activision Blizzard is next. Mary Jo, you missed the entire drama from beginning to end.
I wouldn't say she missed it.
I can't believe I missed
she told me privately. I was like, it said something about Activision Blizzard. She goes, who?
She would have hated it.
That's been the best part of my new job, is we never ever write about gaming.
Oh, it would have been a nightmare for you.
It would have.
Actually, that's what you said. You said you've expanded. You do more gaming news. I'm like, no, I don't. But it's been all Activision. Like, this year's been like an insane year of.
No, I know. For you, it's been a big story this year. For me, it's been a big relief not to write about it.
She knew.
I'm glad we both enjoyed it for different reasons.
Our show today brought to you, and I mean brought to you quite literally, by our good friends at CacheFly. You've heard me say it many times. Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. For over 20 years, CacheFly has held the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery, serving over 5,000 companies, including ours, in over 80 countries. Organizations consistently choose CacheFly for 3 reasons: scalability, reliability, and unrivaled performance. We get all 3 from CacheFly. CacheFly's revolutionary storage optimization system, something we've been using for a while, now it's available to everyone, ensures your holiday season remains jolly. The system creates private partitions that are dedicated entirely to your use on the CacheFly server, so you get 100% bandwidth to ensure your content remains king, 0 cache misses. Keep your content and data primed, closer to your customers, maintaining optimal speeds, ensuring quicker content delivery no matter where your customers are. And you can't beat a 100% cache hit ratio. Let CacheFly supercharge your images. If you've got a website with images on it, watch your content soar to new heights of efficiency and performance. Jump on board with CacheFly's smart image optimization service. Give your audience a seamless, lag-free experience they deserve on every size screen. And you know, the advantage of CacheFly is by keeping your content on the edge, CacheFly can make sure that your delivery speed is instantaneous. Add CacheFly's video on demand cache layer to your mix. If you're doing live video, you'll see a transformative reduction in loading times. You'll say goodbye to the buffering blues, immediately and permanently drive your cache hit ratio to 100%. That's CacheFly's VOD cache. There's so many reasons to use CacheFly. Ultra low latency video streaming to over 1 million concurrent users. Lightning fast gaming, which delivers downloads faster with zero lag, glitch, or outages. Mobile content optimization, which offers automatic and simple image optimization so your site loads faster on any device. CacheFly is the only CDN built for throughput. Deliver rich media content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods and 30% faster than other major CDNs. And the billing's great. It's flexible month to month as you're getting to know what your needs and demands and bandwidth uses are. And for us, it was, very spiky, very inconsistent. So it took a while for us to figure it out. But then once you do, you get fixed terms, which give you even bigger discounts. Basically, bottom line, you design your contract when you switch to CacheFly. With CacheFly's elite managed packages, you get VIP treatment. Your dedicated account manager will be with you from day one, ensuring a smooth implementation and reliable 24/7 support when you need it. People come to us all the time saying, could we be your CDN? I always say, no, we got the best. We have CacheFly. We've been using CacheFly for more than a decade, and I can tell you right now, we wouldn't have it any other way. Jumpstart your journey with CacheFly. Get a complimentary first month or give it a whirl with a free 5 terabyte account. That's nice. That's something new. Go to cachefly.com/twit. Cachefly.com/twit. This holiday season, I've been focusing on gratitude, and CacheFly is one of the partners who's been with us almost since the beginning. I'm so grateful for CacheFly. I'm so grateful for their support of everything we do here at Twit. Thank you, CacheFly. Back to the panel and the subject that Mary Jo Foley did not want to talk about, but sorry, you've got to talk about it. Activision Blizzard. Do it. Can you keep it short for her, please, guys?
Yes.
No. So, no. This is just a kind of a question for that look back, look ahead thing. Obviously, look back. This was a big year with the Activision Blizzard controversy and drama and final approval and all that stuff. But, how do you guys see this impacting Microsoft or Xbox, I guess, specifically, like next year? Like, what changes with the business? I mean, is this just more games, more studios?
I don't think there's going to be a lot in the first year, just because that's the nature of acquisitions, especially ones this big.
Right.
It's going to take a while. I mean, if you think about the major properties, like, do they move World of Warcraft to Azure? Does that even make sense? Like, Blizzard essentially built their own cloud infrastructure at this point.
Oh my God, you just reminded me. LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
Canceled their migration to, is it Azure?
Probably.
Yes.
It'd have to be Azure.
Yes. Yeah. 2019, LinkedIn announced, okay, we evaluated all our options. Like they had a choice, right?
Exactly. And it turns out the people who own us want us to use this. Yeah. So we're going to do that.
Yeah. But now CNBC had the scoop on this. They contacted them. They said, hey, how's that migration going? And they're like, yeah, you know what? We're not doing it now because this was great. The reason they gave, there are so many other customers that want to get on Azure, and we're letting them have priority access.
Well,
so they claim they claim they didn't cancel it, that they're just moved to the back of the line.
Well, and that's legit. If you have working infrastructure right now, you think about how much load Azure is under because of OpenAI.
But
agree, but come on, this is just an excuse for not moving.
This, you guys are uniquely positioned, by which I mean are old enough to remember this one. It's like the Microsoft announced when they bought Hotmail, they were going to move it off of FreeBSD and never did. They had to rebuild that thing from scratch. They couldn't. It's
just not that simple. And it's just no protocol. Just
also not simple. Right. Yeah. They've been using all kinds of open source tech at LinkedIn their whole lives, even before Microsoft bought them. Right. So to suddenly just switch to Azure, it's not that simple. Right.
No, the way it's going to come around is as LinkedIn's own and Blizzard's own infrastructure starts to age out.
Right.
They're looking at replacing millions of dollars worth of equipment, and they can't use the same purchase order system that the cloud's already got in place. And so now you're going to have to figure out how to buy your own hardware when let's face it, the major cloud vendors own a conduit of hardware acquisition. And so at some point, 3 to 5 years from now, you're looking at buying this hardware, and then you look at it, if it was running on Azure, you'd already have the hardware. That's what changes the dynamic. But you're not going to do it for political reasons. You're going to do it because it saves money.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I don't remember the numbers anymore. It's not, and because it wasn't traumatic, I didn't even look it up. But I did an analysis of, Activision Blizzard's financials over a year, pulled it into Microsoft. Like, how does that impact things? It does obviously impact things, but more personal computing is still the smallest of the 3 Microsoft business units by far. Like, it doesn't make that much of a difference. It really contributes mostly just to the health of the overall platform, I think, and we'll see. But I bet this is going to be the worst year Call of Duty's had in forever.
Well, it helps they made a terrible version.
Yeah. So I think they toss it out the door.
If you're talking about the big things they got to try and take on now, it's like, can you fix the culture? Like Bobby's out the door. So can you fix the culture?
That's the next story, Richard. That is I'm glad you mentioned that. So lost in the drama over the acquisition was the fact that the reason the acquisition came together was because, I think it was the Wall Street Journal broke the story about all the awful workplace allegations against Activision Blizzard by women. And then they released all this internal information that Bobby Kotick didn't just know about it. He was leading the charge and blah. He's a horrible human being and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And Phil Spencer went public and said, yeah, this is not okay. We're going to reevaluate this relationship. And Bobby K called him and said, maybe we should talk about some things, and that turned into
talk about my golden parachute.
Yeah. So I had actually kind of forgotten about this in some small way, but just the other day, Activision Blizzard settled that suit, and there's money going out the door, et cetera, et cetera. But I made we knew he was leaving by the end of the year, but I was like, conveniently, this will be just in time for Bobby Kotick to take off.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened.
AKA, he gets away with it. He's going to get to walk away with a giant pile of money.
That's right.
And Microsoft is paying everybody else.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah. This was, I'm sure was a known
the cost
part of the fee. Yeah.
We're going to have to do this. Right. But, and one would argue there were challenges in the culture at GitHub as well. And they've been trying to address those. And that's an interesting problem because at the same time, it's like, it's a lot of the same people. And it's also, you make a certain product a certain way, like culture changes slowly. It's not a trivial thing to do. But not allowing criminal behavior shouldn't be a cultural conversation.
Right.
And the one thing I can count on my dealing with Microsoft over the past few years is they do not allow criminal behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, they've certainly had their own high profile versions of this with Gates and what's his name? Alex Kipman was kind of a problem like this.
But they're also all out.
They're gone now.
Right. Like the bigger thing here is it's not continuing.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep.
Right. So
is it your sense that
they didn't have the problem?
That Satya just has zero tolerance for that kind of stuff and is just
Well, he tolerated it for some number of years. I don't think
before he was
Alex
CEO
Kipman,
though. Oh well, Kipman was under him.
And let me be clear.
Since he's been
this
CEO.
is not an epiphany by a corporation trying to be kinder, gentler. This stuff wrecks the share price. Get rid of it.
Right.
This is not what current society tolerates. It has to go. You cannot hide it. Right. You will always get caught. You will always have a PR disaster. Just be on top of it. It's simpler and it's cheaper. I'd like to think they're doing it for the right reasons, but they don't need to be doing it for the right reasons. It's actually economically wise.
Good for business.
Yeah, it's good for business to just cut them because covering it up doesn't work. You always get caught. It's inevitable.
Yeah, right. And God, the whole way that they really rode the cloud to such big success, stock price wise, market cap wise, et cetera. You don't screw that up.
Well, and therein lies the point. There is no single individual, even Bill Gates, so valuable that it's worth covering it up.
Yes, exactly right.
There's no such thing. We have piles of money. We can afford it. Just get rid of it.
Just do the right thing.
Continue.
Yep.
well, the right thing happens to be good for the share price, right? I don't even know if I can feel right about any of that.
I would say it's even good for business. If your business is an unhealthy client for climate for women, you're missing out on 50% of the population. You're losing so much brain power, so much quality.
It's even worse than that because this culture extends out into the games themselves. People are being harassed online, and the whole
AI,
you make the whole thing horrible. Like, I mean, No,
I watched a great study of how the camera angles are different from a female, following a female character or following a male character. And it's like literally embedded in the software.
Yeah, good stuff. That's good stuff.
And we won't even talk about armor. That's all.
right. You can tell whether it was drawn by a man or a woman usually.
Putting the breast back in the breastplate. I think that's the
No, that would be the first.
It just seems to me this is it's easy to say, well, the culture's changed or it's good for the stock price, but it's just the right thing to do also, right?
You would hope that was sufficient. I don't know that it is, but it doesn't matter.
Not in business.
We've created sufficient economic incentives today. But now if you get with the program,
if it's a happy coincidence, we'll take it. Just at least they're doing the right thing.
I'm not going to hope that hard. I'm just liking that seems to be the policy, and they seem to follow it fairly well.
Right. So this is the notes, I think, right? Yeah. So semi-related to this, Microsoft confirmed that Bobby Kay will be leaving the company on December 29th. And I think they had said vaguely before it would be the end of the year. So he'll get his platinum parachute or whatever. This piece of human garbage. He has been there since the early 90s, I want to say, like 30, very early on.
He didn't start the company, right? But
No, that was like Dave Crane and those guys from Atari. But this was the second gen but he's been there ever since. I mean, he's got to be the longest.
He's the last man standing of that original crew that took it from the Atari folks and grew it huge.
In Boston, we have things like the oldest continually operated restaurant in America and the oldest continually operated bar. That's what he is.
He's the oldest continually operating
CEO of a video game company. And like those places, a little musty. So, but as part of this announcement, they also confirmed, and this is actually very interesting, and actually, Mary Jo, you would find this interesting. Don't fall asleep. They are not keeping this place open as a separate subsidiary like they do with some businesses like Mojang and GitHub and et cetera, including some in LinkedIn and also some game studios like Bethesda, right? This is going to be, these things are going to be integrated into Xbox. Like this will become part of the company. Yeah.
And therein lies the question mark, which is this because of culture? Because they didn't do it for Bethesda.
That's right. I don't know. That's a good question.
So they can lay people off.
Well, okay. So So as part of this, that means that the existing executive staff is coming to Microsoft. One of those people they'd already announced. Remember, they did like a leadership change announcement a month or two ago, whatever. One of the women from Activision, I believe, was part of that. But anyway, they're gonna roll these people in.
Lulu Maservi, the chief communications officer, is leaving.
Okay. Yeah, but we'll see.
Umam Sakini, we're gonna have to look the vice chairman in Blizzard and King, is departing. A number of Activision Blizzard executives will depart in March. But
the big deal, I think, is going to be the like employees, though, right? So we'll see, because this is, I don't know how many employees Activision Blizzard has, but I'm guessing it's more than a dozen, and they're probably all over the world. And how do you? I don't know. We'll see. There probably will be further cuts. This is actually one of the things we should have talked about this past year. Was all the layoffs, right? Here's Microsoft. Microsoft has moved from a model that was very partner-centric. They were not unique, but I think they were one of the biggest examples of the kind of the partner culture, the antithesis of Apple, right? And by the time they moved to what became Microsoft 365, a lot of those partners were no longer needed, really, right? And so Microsoft tried to accommodate the people who used to service those customers out in the world to some degree. But at some point it became, well, Microsoft is, administering your Exchange server. Isn't that better than third party we're not sure about, or doing it in-house? Yeah, okay. But a lot of their, there's high profile people we know about Microsoft kind of indiscriminately laid off this year, but also their whole, the sales and the product support people. I know a bunch of people who were laid off this year. Yeah. And it's including some local
random.
people. It seems incredibly random. And that's what's weird about it, because that was the argument I made in my own little part of Penton when they were laying off everybody, which is I finally went over the heads of 3 people to go to this vice president and say, you just laid off the guy who was the liaison we had with Microsoft and the person responsible for us doing Best of TechEd every year. And he said, I had no idea. And I said, I know that's the problem. You're just looking at a spreadsheet and laying people off.
Yeah.
And I got in trouble for this, but the point was it was so arbitrary. It was also like one of the 2 people I deal with directly at your company, you just laid off. And it's like
that's when a company's too big. If they don't know,
they have no idea. All they do, they're filtered by salary and term. How long you've been here. Give me that little Venn diagram, and then no, it's not good. But that's what this feels like this year at Microsoft.
And of course, we're jumping back to the previous unit, but you bring up a great point, which is at the beginning of this year, we were told to expect serious economic downturns in the last half of the year. And so that was the excuse all these companies were making to tighten the belt, so to speak, because it was going to get rough.
Right.
As they posted record quarter after record quarter.
In the middle of all this AI stuff, I started asking every quarter, well, how are you going to pay for this? And then finally, 2 quarters ago, we're just going to pay cash. We have such huge profits that we can afford $10 to $15 billion a quarter to build out our AI infrastructure. Oh yeah, my company does the same thing. That's fine. I can afford $10 to $15 a quarter, based on my profits. It's just astonishing how much money this company makes.
Yeah, and what's the Activision hires about 13,000 employees.
Yeah, geez. Okay, that's pretty significant, actually.
That's a several percentage points increase.
Yeah.
But let's face it, they need a new strategy around Xbox for gaming. They need to do something. I'm very excited, that as much as I was not a huge fan of your Xbox section, I've come to appreciate how smart Game Pass is from Microsoft, right? That Microsoft is next Netflixing gaming.
Yeah.
Pay a monthly subscription, lots of games.
That's right.
Stabilizing cash flow, because I've had so many friends of mine that work in the gaming industry where you have this crush to ship in October.
Gaming
rapidly turned into a game that doesn't work in October.
Yeah, so
it'll be patched by spring.
For everyone but Microsoft, basically, although they had a little bit of this with Halo and maybe a few other games, gaming was very much like Windows and Office used to be. You'd have a big bang release every 3 years or whatever, and then you'd have some lean years, for it could be a game franchise title like a Call of Duty type game, although that was annual, or whatever the game might be. And it just has not worked out for Microsoft. But think about it. I mean, Microsoft figured out subscriptions in the 90s, right? How far back does software assurance go? They must have always had their eye on the consumer market, right?
Well,
and there is no bigger
the transformation of Office is the ultimate one, right? I mean, that was a $1,000 bill every 3 years, and suddenly now it's $30 a head per month per person. Right? Like it's an astonishingly successful thing, and they want to do the same thing to gaming, and we're probably going to like it.
Yeah, I mean, those people say no. I can't. I won't do this for whatever reasons. But yeah, I think for most people, it's that Netflix thing, like you said. You have this. Here's my choices.
What's the new title? Right. Yep. And if you watch any of them, then finally cancel it. But if you watch a few of them, you're happy. But the main thing you don't have to decide is, do I need to plunk down $100?
That's the math. I mean, you can look at Xbox just sent you your year in review. Mary Jo, I'm curious, what was your biggest game?
My biggest game this year.
So, but you could look at that and say,
enterprise licensing. That's
geez. I didn't miss Enterprise Licensing Simulator. Probably is a game. You could look at your stats and say like this. Yeah, I paid $10 or $15 a month depending on the SKU, and that added up to whatever amount. And here's what all the games I played. Yeah, no, I made money. I not made money. I spent less than I would have if I had actually bought those games. Right. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you don't make money. It doesn't pay for itself. I don't mean it like that. But it's
and meantime they can't sell an Xbox to save their lives.
Yes, which is that where are we in that one? We'll get to that soon. That's coming up in my Xbox segment, which is pretty short today, by the way, Mary Jo. Okay,
thank you. That's my Christmas wish.
There you go. But you want to talk Google Epic, because I guarantee you that one's going to come back around a few times next year. Like,
so
not done.
Right. Yeah. I put that aside. I was going to write about that over the weekend. But yeah, so a couple of things related to Google. The first is that they settled a Play Store suit. I read one of the most poorly, I woke up in the morning, I read the paper on an iPad. I'm not 80, but it was the most poorly worded. It was like U.S. states. And I was like, yeah, how many U.S. states? I kept looking, where's the number? All U.S. states, every U.S. state, and Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. The attorneys generals of all of these places sued Google for their unfair practices with the Play Store, which is yet another little kind of chink in this armor here. And, they're going to pay us into a settlement fund. So people are going to get money back. They're going to open up, blah, 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 whatever. The thing that's interesting about this is they actually agreed to this in September, which is before the Epic suit went to trial.
Yeah.
They were doing horribly in the trial. The judge basically pulled Google aside and said, stop.
Go make
I'm not even going to put this in front of the jury. Settle. Just settle. And they met and didn't settle. And we talked about, we have our kind of theories about why that might be. Yeah. And Google lost big, except what really happened? Well, what's really going on, Richard, I guess is maybe the way to ask that question.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is all back end stuff. It's like, go ahead, make the deal, make people get out of the press, because inside the actual agreement are things like the alternative store only works for a year.
Yeah,
there's a
lot of little asterisks.
A list of conditions that if I was a developer trying to figure out where to put my app, there's one place, the Google Store. You put it anywhere else, you're committing suicide.
Yeah, and the thing is, I make this case for Apple and Google that their goal is to delay the reducing of this 30/15% fee for as long as possible, because it's completely unreasonable.
Yeah.
And it's so much money. And this agreement lowers the amount Google makes per transaction to like 26%.
Yeah.
Not 2.6% like they deserve.
Yeah.
But it's 26%. But it's crazy.
There's a point, the point of there's litigation, there's PR, and there's business. Right. And you do whatever you have to get the PR piece done with. Right. There's plenty of quiet litigation you can do for as long as you want. But as soon as it becomes noisy, just settle and then kill it on the back end.
Right.
Create those conditions. Find the solutions. Act like oil companies. Which I don't want that, but this is these is big business. These are gigantic companies, and they make huge amounts of money, and I think they're really there. Yep. That's what they're doing now. Like they looked incompetent. We're like, "Where's your Brad Smith?"
I know.
I think they have a Brad Smith, except he may be even meaner. Like he's actually.
If they do, it's not Kent Walker, unless he's talking a really good game, because that guy to me is just committing suicide in court. I don't quite understand what he's doing.
I think it was like, oh, look at this, while they're knifing him on the other side.
Yeah. Evil always wins in the end, because good is done.
Something.
Yeah. Okay. So that's too bad. And then we don't have to talk about this too much, but Adobe is giving up on their $20 billion. Yeah. Adobe just spent the past year talking about nothing but AI and ignoring Figma. And then a bunch of antitrust regulators were not too happy with this, finally woke up. By the way, there is an issue here, I will say, with antitrust, especially in the UK, Europe, whatever, where the companies announce what they're doing, and then a year goes by, and a year and a half goes by. And then finally they're like, you know what? Actually, we're not going to let this.
Right.
We're not going to let you do this. It's like, guys, we've been talking about this for almost 2 years. What are you doing?
Okay, and crazy theory. What if Microsoft buys Figma?
Yikes.
Now, is that better?
I mean,
no.
Yes,
the fear
because
of Figma being acquired by Adobe was going to kill it because they have competing products.
No,
they were going to kill XD.
Microsoft is a huge user of Figma.
So would they kill Designer? Is that what you're saying? Like, does this replace Designer?
I remember when it was announced Adobe was buying Figma. I'm like, I thought Microsoft was going to try to buy them. I was kind of surprised.
Adobe paid a premium. They offered $20 billion, which is much more than it was worth.
Now they're paying a huge end fee.
I think $1 billion bucks.
Also, Microsoft may not be looking to buy another big company since they're just.
I was going to say, I think they're on the hot seat right now.
I would also argue you can do a stock swap. You don't have to keep paying cash.
Oh, true.
Right.
And your price will go up to
the same regulatory headwinds that Adobe had, probably, though.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're not a design company.
Well, no, not exactly.
Not a design company.
Adobe dominates that market, right? So Adobe was literally removing a competitor. That
was absolutely the feel of it.
It was it. I mean, it's a classic monopolist kind of, tactic, right? It's right out of the playbook.
The UKCMA did something right. Is that what you're hinting at?
Okay, so I would word this a little differently. I would say they took their sweet ass time to get to this point, but seriously, they could have done this like 9 months ago.
Yeah. It's like, listen, the question is, was there backroom conversation, and we only hearing about it when I had to go to the front room?
Yeah.
Did the UKCMA ping them on the day and say, this isn't going to happen?
It could be. It was right. So Adobe just had their Max, their big annual shows Max. And I think it's October, probably somewhere in there, September, October. Never mentioned Figma even once, basically. And that was actually maybe retroactive. Retroactive. That was telling. Maybe they knew.
Well, I mean, they can't either, too, right? Like, you're not supposed to talk about future plans if you haven't actually got the okay to buy the company.
No, that's true, too. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Becomes speculative. This SEC has
it's
words.
It's just that Adobe, like the rest of the planet, has been AI all year long. And they did, honestly, they did their own great little ramp up and did a great job with it.
Yep.
But it kind of overshadowed the Figma thing. And in fact,
and the real question is, have they wrecked Figma in the process, which is entirely possible.
Yeah. Right.
How much of the team has been demolished? If you're really, if you're looking at an acquisition going a long time and you're not liking where it's going, you leave. Right. At least the good people do.
I think they were. I mean, a lot of them were holding out for the big payoff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And, now they're like,
now it's over. So
Figma's trying to figure that out. By the way, that's another side story. It doesn't really impact us.
It'll be plenty of damage because of that, right? A failed acquisition, especially after that much time going through due diligence and so forth, scrutiny and shuffle and so forth. They're shattered. It's not the same company anymore.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But
I gotta think there's another conversation going on. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it was Microsoft.
You could buy Canva, guys. They're still there. Just saying.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I mean, Adobe was doing it purely defensively. Microsoft wouldn't be doing it for that reason.
Yeah.
Well, this was the argument Gates made against acquiring Slack. He's like, we could eliminate that competitor, but why don't we do it the fun way? Why don't we just destroy them? We'll make our own.
That's Bill in a nutshell.
We have everything we need. What are you buying? We don't need anything they have. You're just getting rid of them.
But Slack also said no. They did try to buy them.
They did.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
And Slack gave them the fingers. Like, no, we're not going with the man. We could do it.
But they might have. I mean, eventually gave them an offer you can't refuse, if you know what I mean.
Well, they went with a man, just the other man, Mark Benioff.
Exactly.
Yeah. But they ended up.
But I honestly, but that's like we would like to never be promoted and you'll never hear from us again. Could you do that for us? Like, yeah, that's all we do. Like that. I mean, I don't even understand that company.
Salesforce,
they're actually kind of cool in a random way, but Salesforce,
But they left him alone, right? That's I guess probably what the founders wanted. Stewart's gone. I mean, he left. He took the money and ran.
I always tell, ever since Richard told the story about Suntory buying a bunch of whiskey makers in the United States and Scotland and so forth, and how what was the one that the Maker's Mark, they went to them and said, you got to age this stuff. I mean, the thing is, like, sometimes good corporate oversight can lead to advantages. Like that was, I tell this story, I've told this story like 100 times now. It's like, this is, you always think, the big corporate consolidation sucks and everything. So hold on a second. Have you had this? Because it's excellent.
Yeah.
And, and they never would have made it on their own.
No, and it's very much, we often say karetsu in the negative form of karetsu.
Yeah. But actually sometimes
the positive form of karetsu. Listen, we know a lot about aging whiskey in stone buildings over longer periods of time. And here's how you do it.
And here's what you have: whiskey and stone buildings. It's like, what's the perfect climate? Let's make this happen.
But also Mark was very much a startup kind of, was the family owned business and only had so much money. And in came the giant thing.
Well, that's always, we're
just going to build this here, build that there. And don't worry.
When my little publishing company, Windows NT Magazine, was purchased by Penton, the promise was, all the money issues are over. And it's like, yeah, but you guys who sold it, you're going to be here still. Oh, you're leaving? Oh, that's interesting. And the money issues didn't go away. They were just handled by people 8 layers away.
Yeah. Well, like it does transform, but you can do initiatives, and certainly one of them was the Cellar Aged Maker's Mark.
Yeah, right. So we'll see what happens. Figma, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
This Figma, what Figma is to Adobe XD as what what's the Epic gaming library?
Fortnite?
No, the gaming
Unreal
developer library. The Unreal Engine is to. I'm losing my words. The most popular one that screwed up their licensing this year. And
you need some Suntory. Now it's Suntory.
Suntory. Those guys. So it's a minor competitor, but they can be popular at their own size, right? I mean, there's no reason they can't do.
You're talking about Unity.
Unity. Thank you, jeez. Yeah, I lost it there.
Where'd you get that little bottle from there?
Every time is Suntory time.
Give you taste the darkness, baby.
I love the darkness. You're turning me into a drunk, Richard, but I thank you for it. Mm-hmm.
MJ, I sent them both whiskey advent calendars.
Oh, nice.
And I've been drunkenly trying to keep up with the advent, but I got to tell you, I started a few days behind. It's not working good.
And I don't know where I am.
Well, I figure if I do 4 days for 4 days in a row,
there you go. You can
I will be dead.
I get lots of little pictures of small bottles from my friends.
Yes, I do.
So
I drunkenly text Richard at like 11.
You're not the only one.
It's a wee dram, 25 wee drams. Cool. We have beer coming up and whiskey too, and an Xbox pick of the week.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And an enterprise pick of the week.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Mary Jo Foley, if you want to go away for the Xbox segment, you can. Go feed Sriracha. How is Sriracha, by the way? No.
He is fine. He was a wild man right before the show started, and he's been knocked out ever since, which is great.
Oh, wow. He's gotten used to it.
He saw me pull out the Focusrite in the mic, and he started jumping around like he used to. I'm like, oh, he remembers.
He remembers. Cats never forget, do they?
They don't.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, but speaking of never forgetting.
You got to do it. It's part of the show.
Time for the Xbox segment. Little Paulie Thurrott jumping around. You said it was going to be short. That's okay.
It is short.
Take your time.
Oh, you want me to do it now? I'm sorry.
I took a break. I took a little break.
We did a fake break. I'm sorry. It was like sitting there typing an email. I'm like, I have time.
It's a fake break.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Although Mary Jo took it pretty seriously. Go ahead.
Yeah, she just she left.
She left.
Right. See? It wasn't just me.
Well, maybe it's the Xbox segment. I don't know.
There was a wonderful leak of internal Sony information, which included their fears about the Xbox platform now that they own Activision Blizzard, right? Or in this case, when this was written, like what would this be like? You know,
this was the Insomnia breach.
Yeah, and it looks bad for them. But this is the point. Like, in other words, we need to try to leapfrog this in our own ways, right? So Sony, like Microsoft, has been expanding into PC games in a bigger way every year. Sony is working to improve their PS Plus stuff, which is kind of their Xbox Game Pass / cloud gaming stuff. Sony already has a great lead, I would say, in exclusives, right? This is their kind of go-to thing. In fact, the thing I was just writing to somebody was they were complaining that I'm not going to be an Xbox guy unless I see Xbox Series X and S exclusives. I'm like, that's not what Xbox is, right? This is a different kind of go-to-market strategy. Microsoft's is the same. This is the Satya Nadella thing, I would say, is, meet your customers where they are. And in gaming, what that means is literally if you're on a console, a PC, mobile, cloud, whatever it might be, whatever device, their goal is to make sure that they can get as many of their games to as many of those places. So if you're looking for like the thing Sony does, which is make something exclusive now to the PS5, I mean, I'm not saying it won't happen, but that's not the general strategy. This has worked very well for Sony in the console market. Microsoft is kind of looking past the console market because, they didn't win it, basically, right? I think if they had won that market, we wouldn't be talking like this. So they're basically just looking at like what they think this acquisition will mean to them really, and what they can do to counter it. And honestly, I think Sony is screwed. No, I think they
sold 3 times the number of PS5s.
Yeah,
well, you got
at
this
what
story.
Margin, right?
Yeah, and
the joke, you won the market that doesn't make money.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And especially for Microsoft, right? Nintendo infamously almost always profits from hardware almost immediately. They do a good job at that. Sony usually over the course of the lifetime of a console will get there. Microsoft has never gotten there. That was one of the things that came out of the leaks.
Is that because their R&D is so expensive, or they don't want to charge enough for their consoles, or?
I don't know. I think
Sony has the upstream manufacturing capability, so they're able
because they're an electronics company.
Which Microsoft doesn't have.
They're not.
That could be.
Yeah. But either way, Microsoft's sticking to the knitting. They are a software company.
That's right.
Better margins.
That's where they get their margins.
You sell your hardware at cost.
Yep.
Right?
It's the razor blade thing, right? Yeah, but the problem is they've never been able to sell it at cost. They haven't even broke even. Like they've never made money ever. So
yeah, I mean, I think their COGS perspective, they charge enough for that, but then they have support problems and all of the other things, and it eats into it. But the other side of this is, do you make games well enough to be profitable? And that's, I think, something they're still working on. Really, what they're doing, if anything, it's like, who should be afraid? Steam.
Yeah,
that's what they're going after. Is we'll be the distributor.
Yeah. So Steam too is they're a single platform, right? The advantage Microsoft has is they span platforms, or that's again the goal. Mm-hmm. I think Steam's okay. I think they're going to be the Steam is that came out too. Steam is in the leak. Steam is the biggest store in Windows, which is on one hand you might say, yeah, obviously it is, and on the other, you're like, really, that's kind of interesting. Like so that's a healthy business.
It's also privately held, right? Like the thing that's crazy about Valve is how few people own Valve.
And how many of them came from Microsoft as a percentage, right? I mean,
included.
Yep. So there's a baby Microsoft right there. Kind of interesting.
Except they're not. Like they've stick to their knitting. They've kept their number of owners tiny. Like
that's right.
And there's no reason for that company to ever IPO. They make a fortune. They get to work on what they want to work on. You know, it's an amazing business that is quietly just cashing in.
But you know what? That's in a way they're a very successful example of that. But that's sort of what I was saying about Figma. I don't know anything about this business. I don't really care. But it's possible that in their world, at whatever level of success they have, they could be very successful, right, and profitable and so forth. And I don't really know that business, but
they were they're a younger company doing an innovative thing that a lot of other people do. Where Valve,
you look at the market leader and say we could do this better because, dear God, Photoshop is a battleship of 3 million concentric parts, none of which were made by the same company and none of which were.
Once you're up into the team, and once your software can drive, you have problems with versioning.
Exactly. Right.
Been too long.
Yep.
I'm fascinated that these strategies seem so very different now. What happens with the hardware long term? What happens when the majority of PS5 players have Game Passes? Because that's the best way to get games for my PS5.
Yeah. That's a different world
now. Because that means Microsoft's being paid every month. And Sony
users,
you sell the hardware once.
That's what Windows is in a way, right? I mean, people run on Microsoft's platform and they use other apps and other, that's one way to look at an ecosystem. I mean,
and arguably looking bigger, right? It's just going to be a question of, why'd you buy Activision Blizzard if you're not going to make games?
Yeah. Well, you are, but again, the goal is to put them out.
On Game Pass.
It's a different way. It's a different way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't know that you can charge it. You're going to have enough Game Pass to offset the value of a Blockbuster. Those Blockbusters are $1 billion products. That's a lot of Game Pass.
Right. There aren't that many now. I can tell you that. They're, low 100 million, somewhere in there. It's not huge. Right. But anyway, we'll see. I don't know. I mean,
because eventually the bean counters come to play. It's like, how many people are allowed to develop this game if this is the cash flow?
We already have examples of games that were developed to fruition. Also TV shows, right? Movies. And then someone pulls the plug and says, it doesn't matter. It will cost us less now to say no.
Yeah.
Throw away all the money we spent than to try to market this thing and have it sell nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Crazy. It's a crazy world.
This is the risk they're taking with this model.
Yes, it is.
Of flattening the revenue. Is that it'll be stable, but will it be enough? And the bigger issue here is if they up the hardware again, or if VR really does take off, like if any of those things happen where we now have to spend hard and innovate on game development,
VR takes off, Microsoft is screwed.
Yeah,
because that's the one thing they have not paid attention to. And therein lies
the battle. Now, I wouldn't bet again on VR because it really hasn't taken off.
Nope.
But there's going to be a disruption sooner or later.
I don't remember. It was Mary Jo's back, by the way, Leo, if you want.
I know, but I'm giving her the option to bail completely.
Oh, I see. I see where
she doesn't want to.
You don't have to feign interest in this topic. Sorry.
Meanwhile, you guys are stretching it out as long as possible.
Yeah, you are.
No,
I'm like, what happened to a short segment here?
All right. So
where's your gong, Mary Jo? Where's your gong?
I know.
When Google canceled Stadia, it was sad on a number of levels. It was, at the time, I think, the best game streaming service. They did a great job technologically with the controller being directly connected to the service. This is a feature Microsoft, we know from a leak, we keep mentioning that they're going to copy that. Good, they should. It's a great idea. And but they also kind of supported the existing body of users in what I thought was a pretty good way. And among the things they did for them was allow them to transition this controller into a Bluetooth controller that will work anywhere that takes Bluetooth controllers, right? So originally that transition period was going to run out December 31st this year, but now they're going to extend the deadline until the end of next year. So if for some reason you're holding on to a Stadia controller and you haven't converted it, you can do so. You'll get a year. So you'll have another year, I should say. Yeah.
And speaking of taking a year, thank you for the Xbox segment. We are now, let's see, ready to go to the back of the book, aren't we? Before we go to the back of the book, can I make a little plug just to our friends? I'm seeing a lot of new people, a lot of new faces in Club Twit, and I'm so grateful to all of you. Welcome. I won't name names because there's so many of you, but we are now up to 9,521 members, which is up about 1,500 members since we started really begging. So, I'm not a person who likes to beg. I don't want to, but I do want to let you know we have a great year ahead of us with lots of great content. This is going to be one of the most interesting years ever in technology, and we'd like to be here to cover it for you. We can't do that without your help. And it's easy because all it is $7 a month. Joining Club Twit, you get ad-free versions of all the shows. You get the Club Twit Discord, which is so much fun and, a great place to hang. And there's animated GIFs, apparently. I think he's talking about the Xbox segment, not about this pitch for Club Twit. There's also, by the way, conversations in the Discord about more than just the shows. You can chat about the show, but we, for instance, we're doing the Advent of Code. We have a very active group, about 24 people who are doing the Advent of Code. We're talking about that. We're talking about AI. We even have an AI creator in here. We have a Midjourney in here. There's a lot of stuff. There's a Minecraft server. My point is, we try to give you benefits. The most important benefit from our point of view is that $7 a month. It makes a big difference in what we can do next year, and we'd love to have you be part of the club. There's also special programming, including iOS Today. We've moved back into the club. Rosemary and Micah are going to do some interesting things next year with iOS Today. So, again, twit.tv/clubtwit. Please join if you can. We'd love to have you in the club, and it's going to make a big, big difference in terms of what we can do in 2024. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Now I'm going to give you back to Paul, Mary Jo Foley, man, I like saying that, and Richard Campbell for our back of the book, starting with a tip of the week. Paul?
The Xbox segment was long. I spent 90 minutes recording Hanson Whistles last week to make up for my mistake.
Oh, you had to redo it.
You
had to redo it. Well, thank you for doing that. And I think the members really appreciate it. It's great. That stuff is great.
The tip is super quick. Microsoft is having a big sale, mostly on Xbox and Surface type stuff. It goes through, well, actually, it depends on what you're looking at. So a lot of the deals end on December 24th, but some of them, select Surface accessories, I think is part of it, go until the beginning of January. So it's called just Google Microsoft Countdown Sale. It's kind of the countdown to the end of the year. But there's also content, the movies and TV shows they sell through the store, et cetera, et cetera. But big sale, big end of year sale. So not so much probably for a Christmas present or holiday present at this time, but maybe just something for yourself. You could save $16 on an Xbox controller or whatever, or $19 actually on a regular controller. So a lot of good stuff there. Not a fire sale, but whatever. Good. Also, I've been working on this kind of digital decluttering thing. I've been consolidating my photo albums. I've done them up through now 2012. I'm working on 2013 now. And one of the big issues I had, because I have tools for deduplication, which you talked about, I had tools for automatically pushing
we want
photo
to see
files
Sriracha. Forget it, Paul. There's a cat, a big old cat. Hello, Sriracha. We missed you. All right, go ahead, Paul. Sorry, I just wanted to say hi to Sriracha.
I don't. Okay.
I'm sorry.
He needs his own song.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Getting to work. Go ahead. Paul.
Sorry, me or her? What's going on?
Continue. Please, Paul. I beg of you. Please.
One of the issues, I use a great tool to auto sort files based on metadata into folder structures, right? And the problem is it only works with certain metadata. And what I found is that video files that you take with your phone do not have date taken metadata. They have media created metadata, which very few applications support.
Man.
So I found something called, what is it called? Media sorter, all one word. And it does everything. So actually you could just use this one tool to sort all of the media, no matter what format it is, into these, whatever. You could rename the files or sort them into different folder structures. And it's fantastic. It's free. And it's fast, and my God, I wish I had had this thing two months ago.
This is where another place where you could see a new generative AI technology come in place, like recognize all the faces in this, sort by that, sort by.
Yes, there are so many legacy tools that were written to something very specific, and what I've never, maybe someone knows of something like this, but I've never found a tool that says, "Tell us the metadata you want," or "Tell us the set of metadata you want." We'll just use that, and you got to be careful with image files, especially because you could get the file you copied it to your desktop and it has that date. You want the real original date created. Anyway,
you want a retagger, right? Just level set all of your tags.
Oh, it's the best. So anyway, this tool's awesome for this. It works really, really well. It's just kind of cut down on the workload dramatically. And then just two quick kind of bonus picks for mobile, because I've just started using these over the past week. Firefox Mobile was updated to support extensions again. I think they used to have extensions back in the day, but they revamped this extension infrastructure. There were over 500 of them now. When they went live with it last week, I think it was 450. It's over 500 now. And it's like everything you would expect from desktop, basically. So something to look at if that matters to you. You want those extensions. Firefox is pretty impressive now on mobile. And then I had to look this one up. I was shocked by this, but DuckDuckGo for Android has supported a tracking protection feature, which is basically, well, it's exactly what it sounds like, for quite some time, but it's been in preview. So they contacted me and said, "Hey, this thing's out of preview." And I was like, "I thought this was out of preview." So here's what happened. 2 years ago, they released this in preview to a limited audience. 1 year ago, they expanded it to anyone who wanted to turn it on. Now it's just available to everybody. So there are a lot of good reasons to use DuckDuckGo on Android as well. And this is one of them for sure. So another, I guess, mobile browser, we'll call it, to look at.
Too funny.
Yep. Here we go.
Mr. Richard Campbell, I think you might want to do a little something for Runners Radio. Yes.
I'm up. And under the category of Microsoft naming things poorly, what do you think Azure Arc guest configuration is even about? Like, good luck, huh?
Yeah.
So it's so bad, even Microsoft's renamed it. If I call it machine configuration for Azure Arc, does that tell you more?
A little more. Arc is so confusing. I'm still confused by Arc.
Arc is a management tool, right? It's for managing your resources on premises, in the cloud, across the clouds, and so forth. And so what machine configuration for Azure Arc is actually a set of templates for how you prefer your virtual machines to be configured wherever they may be running. So if you want to move a VM up into Azure, it's going to apply the security constraints you've predefined. So rather than every virtual machine having to have its own configuration and then have to be security validated and validated based on rules for your organization, you can put together a set of policies. Those are stored as templates, and then you can apply them. And at the same time, it can also tell you when you're out of configuration. If there's drift, we have cool tools like desired state configuration that'll actually show, are you in sync with the current configuration? If we apply updates, how do they roll onto it? So forth. which ARC is all very good at. It's just named so badly. Nobody knows what this stuff does. But Jody Boone is a young woman at Microsoft who is in the center of all of this. She's been helping with the naming, but she knows this stuff cold. And so we were able to go through this. Hey, we all have these problems. Like if you're in that sysadmin role of trying to shepherd a bunch of virtual machines wherever they may be, ARC can do it all. You just need to know what to light up and to get to this place where it becomes easier and easier to manage them rather than each new one being an N+1 problem for you to struggle through. So, yeah, she kicked ass. It was a great conversation, and I highly recommend it. If you're in this problem space, you're going to care a lot about what this tool can do for you.
My screen just turned orange, which is my way of saying I hate the winter. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I mean, solstice is upon us, friend.
It
like
is.
the next day or two. Thank goodness. It's been bloody dark.
Today, actually. I think it's today. Yeah.
God.
All right. How about you do a little... I forgot. What do you do? Oh, Brown. Well, wait a minute now. We've got an enterprise pick of the week. We got to do this in order. Yeah. It's time for Mary Jo.
You guys are doing something fun together.
And it's together? I don't have a 2-box of the U2. All right. Paul, just if you would just duck out of the frame and now.
Wow. I mean, I don't mind listening.
Wait, are we going to do an enterprise pick?
I guess so.
Yes, an enterprise pick of the week.
Yeah. So this is a very self-serving enterprise pick of the week, but I think it will be of interest to our listeners who care about enterprise tech. So there's 2 things that we have on directionsonmicrosoft.com that you can get for free. And let me tell you, that's kind of a rarity. Our business is charging people to help them with licensing and understanding contracts and negotiating with Microsoft. That's how we make money. But we also have some free stuff. And one of the free things is we have a blog that I got going this year, directionsonmicrosoft.com/blog. And one of the features on our blog is called Answer This. So there's a form you can go to in one of these entries. If you have a really complicated licensing question, an enterprise tech question, you're like, we have X number of licenses of this. Do we need more? If you describe your scenario, we will help you for free. And as long as you let us post this in our blog post, we won't identify you or your company, but we'll just say, hey, here's the answer to your question, and it's free. So check it out. It's called Answer This on our blog. And the other one, it's coming very soon. I thought it was going to be today, but maybe in the next day or 2. We're going to be posting a link for you to be able to download something we've been working on all year. We've created a giant Copilot matrix where we're listing the enterprise Microsoft Copilots, what we know about the licensing, what we know about the pricing, how they work, who they're for, all in one handy dandy chart that you'll be able to download for free. So stay tuned to directionsonmicrosoft.com for that if you want to have this awesome tool that we're going to update regularly since they keep changing the branding and the pricing and the naming. It's something we'll be updating probably every month at least. So yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, you'll never run out of stuff to talk about there.
No, we will not.
Crazy.
Really
cool.
No.
And I'm glad you're doing it too, because I've been trying to keep track of them. And
it's impossible.
Yeah,
it took our whole team of analysts working together to do this.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know that Microsoft knows.
No, they don't. I don't think they have this. I don't think they have this asset.
Maybe they'll use yours. That would be funny, wouldn't it?
I know. We were looking to see if they had it. I'm like, I don't think they have this.
Wow. Okay. Too complicated, probably.
Yeah. It's complicated.
Yeah. You need AI to figure it out.
You do.
All right. Thank you, Mary Jo. We missed your enterprise picks of the week.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, you know what else? We missed your beer picks of the week, but I think we're going to do a kind of a joint enterprise there as well. Let's start with the brown liquor.
Like put the whiskey into the beer as kind of a bomb thing.
Yeah.
It's Boilermaker.
It's a Boilermaker.
Yeah. One of these whiskeys that I'm going to talk about 2 different whiskeys because they're both from the same distillery is very well suited to a Boilermaker. Or a nog, as somebody suggested as well.
Oh, I love nogs. I'm all in the nogs. I'm all up. Yeah.
Listen, I mean, I like whiskey. I think you know that.
Yeah. I think so.
And I'm pretty good at telling stories about whiskey too.
Yeah, I think so.
And a couple of shows ago, I thought, I'm going to go talk about FIDIC 12 because FIDIC 12 is like the original staple single malt. If a bar has any single malt, it has Fittick 12. If you're going visiting family and they have a single malt, it's probably a Fittick. And I want to just give it respect because it's the original. Grant and Sons really defined the concept of the single malt. They turned it into a marketing thing, and it went on from there. And of course, if I was going to talk about Glenfiddich, having toured that distillery, I had to talk about Balvenie the following week because they're literally on the same grounds. And I generally know a fair bit about these things. Like I write a lot of this out of my head, but then I go fact check myself, right? Because do I remember incorrectly? Is there other details I could go into? Double checking years. And I just landed in a rabbit hole. Like Grant and Sons have been up to stuff that I never knew about. And that's what today's distillery is. Today's distillery is another Grant and Sons distillery called Kinnevie. Now, is it really a distillery? That's an interesting question. Because in 1990, when Balvenie was rocking it, this was their second brand that really went big on the single malts. When whiskey was ascended again in the beginning, they needed to build another distillery and they didn't have a lot of room. So they literally grabbed the property next door and they built a set of stills directly adjacent to Balvenie. In fact, they had 3 wash stills and 3 spirit stills, and they for the most part, just piped it straight into Balvenie production just to try and keep up with demand because they were so busy. But as they got things under control and actually grew the primary distillery some more, they started doing experiments with this other set of stills and doing separate agings with them as well. And so they created a new brand called Hazelwood for the Hazelwood single malts, and which is not to be confused with a new product they're now making, same group, which is now a blend called Hazelwood. And Hazelwood actually comes from the name of the Grant family estate. It's called Hazelwood. So that's where the name came from. Mm-hmm. So through the 90s, they made a few of these, and they're fairly hard to find. They didn't make, the production lots were very small. They were typically only sold in Scotland. And they're largely off the market now. Around 2011, so after 20 years or so of doing this, they went quiet for a while. And then they rebranded in 2013 to call themselves Kinnevie. And that was around the time that they started making more blends. So now they were starting to produce some blends, and we'll talk about this a little bit more further on. But only the stills were separate. All of the mash work, all of the barley work and so forth was done in Balvenie. Now, it was different barley. It was a different grist. They treat it differently, but they would get it up to the wash stage, and then they would pump the wort over to the stills in Kinnevie and distill it. And then they'd feed it back into the barrel system in Balvenie, but they'd rack the barrels a little differently and handle them. So is it really a different distillery? Because it's kind of just directly connected to it, but they made a few unusual whiskeys along the way. And if you go research the Hazelwood collection, there's only a half a dozen of them, and they typically only have a few hundred bottles of each, sometimes less, priced anywhere between about $1,200 and $7,500 US per bottle. And you have to be a member of the Hazelwood collection, which just to sign up on a form to even have the option to buy them. And if I was going to recommend one, if you're looking for, one to get me for a present, perhaps the Spirit of Scotland 46, which is a 43.6 ABV, runs about $1,500 US. There's only 500 bottles in the world. Now, wait, didn't you say this whole thing started in the 1990s? How did they make a 46 when they've been around for 30 years? How odd. So in 1990, this is how this whiskey called the Spirit of Scotland came to be. 1994, Grant and Sons, so that's the larger collective entity that is Fittick and Balvenie and so forth, made a Spirit of Scotland 500th anniversary edition. Now, what was the 500th anniversary? It was the 500th anniversary of the first recorded reference to Scottish whiskey in 1494 on the Exchequer Rolls of Scotland. And so Grant and Sons, anticipating this, had taken a few of their best barrels from their stills and had put them aside. They made an 18-year-old they called the 500th anniversary edition. They priced it very high, and it didn't sell particularly well. And they kept a bunch in. They actually relayed it into barrels and put it away again. This whole Kinnevie thing happened, and in 2022, it was 46 years old. And so they've rebottled it now as the House of Hazelwood's Spirit of Scotland 46. In between these times, in 2019, they created another brand they called Kinnevie Works, where they made weird whiskeys, things that would not be considered Scottish whiskey. They did a run, just a few of them, with mixed mash bills. So they did a triple distillation that was aged in bourbon casks for 5 years, which is very like Woodford Reserve-ish. They did a mixed mash bill in Scotland, like heresy. 89% malted barley, 11% rye in Virgin American oak for 3 years. Again, very bourbony. And then they did another mixed mash bill with more barley and less grain, but then mixed it in with European oak. And they only sold them on Amazon. You can find a few at auction. Don't bother. They were just experiments. It's weird. The whiskey you have heard of that's part of this entire system is Monkey Shoulder.
That's a terrible name.
So Monkey Shoulder is the name for a pain that that maltmen get. So when you're turning the malt, the strain of the shovel of lifting that malt, turning it over, gives you monkey shoulder.
Well.
Monkey Shoulder is made by Grant & Sons. It's actually made in the Kinnevie distillery, and it is a blended malt. Okay, not just a blended whiskey, a blended malt. So there's no grain alcohol in it. It's just a blend of malts, typically Fiddick, Balvenie, and what comes from the Kinnevie stills. It's the third best selling Scottish whiskey in the world.
What?
After Johnny Walker and the Macallan. What? It's about $40. And it's very drinkable, but it is a blended malt.
It's kind of made for, it looks like from the website, mixing, like boiling.
It's a party. And they say, if you want to make a whiskey nog, make it with shoulder. And listen, it drinks fine. Throw a couple of ice cubes in it. Like, there's nothing wrong with this whiskey. It's perfectly drinkable. But it comes from the same distillery that also wants to sell you a $1,500 bottle of only one of 500 limited edition 46-year-olds. And so, is it really a distillery? It's interesting, right? And then the thing is, I'm not to the bottom of the crazy Grant things yet. There's more. But I'm going to take a break. I think that was enough. But because Kinnevie was directly tied to Balvenie, I thought it was important to tell the story alongside.
It's really interesting.
Plus, you get that double combination of, you can build very rare old whiskeys, but you can also make a super popular blended malt through the same system.
Is whiskey like port or something, like it gets better the older it is? Or is there a point at which, beyond which you do not wish to?
That's a phenomenal question, and it's very challenging to answer it. I have on a couple of barrel tours with a master distiller thieved directly from a 50-year-old that drank like tar.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I was like thick vinegar.
It gets very strong. Okay. And so they're typically used in small proportions, right? Like when it says 46 on the bottle, that just means it's the youngest thing in there. Although in the case of that particular edition, which was already a blended edition, it's actually a blend.
Right.
That Spirit of Scotland, it's all 46 because it was all barreled at the same time. But most of the special editions, and I didn't get into this in Balvenie, but like one of my very, very favorite whiskeys is their Ton 1509, which they only do limited releases every few years of. And there's often 50 in the Ton 1509, but they don't even put a year on it because they only use a little bit of 50 for the flavor of it. No, it's not certain that whiskey gets better with age. And it's not like you put it in a barrel and say, 12 years from now, that's going to be amazing. You don't know. You barrel it up and then you check it at an interval every few years, and you're looking for flavor profiles. And one of your dangers is the alcohol level is dropping over time. Depending on where it's laying in the barrel rooms, it may be going faster or slower. But if it falls below 40%, you cannot sell it as whiskey. And so barrelmen often will see a particular production run some years in getting low. It's getting into below 50, and they'll get rid of it. They'll offload it to McPhail or one of the other barrelers or bottlers because it isn't fitting the flavor profile of what they want to make, and they want to sell it while it still has some value. But sometimes they go really well, and sometimes you'll do a flora and fauna bottling like Diageo does, where this is a special edition. You don't know. It's taste. You have to feel for it, and it's part of the magic of this whole process. Is that The climate matters. Those barrels breathe over the year, warmer in the summer, cooler in the winter, more wood absorption versus more expiration. It depends. And so seasons matter. Different years have different effects. It's never certain. Where that barrel sat in the barrel room matters. What that particular lineage of the wood matters. And so you can't be certain. And the genius, the absolute genius of a single malt whiskey like a Macallan 12 or a Balvenie 12 is that it tastes like Balvenie 12 every year. Somebody made that. They selected the barrels to make an assembly that tastes like Macallan 12. How do you do that? Those guys are geniuses.
Yeah.
Man, I thought I could wax poetic about beer. But
I know. It's amazing, isn't it? Beer is just beer, but whiskeys, it's like...
beer,
it's just beer.
It's barrel aged too, and they're all the same constraints and complications, but yeah.
I love how, they'll take beer barrels and they'll age whiskey in it.
That's right, and vice versa.
Yep. Right? It's beautiful.
Yep.
It's a beautiful
Yes.
thing. Mary Jo Foley, in honor of your wonderful appearance here, I have written a song. No, I would like to.
I have a stop at 4:53 p.m.
No, we want to get a beer of the week. It's been so long and people miss it.
It has.
What have you been drinking?
It is. Oh, well, probably a little of everything, but I have the perfect beer for today.
Okay.
A very unique beer. Here is the can.
She's got it right there.
Wow, look at that.
And she is prepared.
It is a beer from a brewery called Back Home Beer. And here's Sriracha to help out.
Hey,
The moment you touch the can.
Back Home Beer. If you can see the can.
It's a
Of
goza.
his tail. It's a gozer. It's a pomegranate gozer. Okay, so here's the story of this beer. There is a woman. Her name is Zahara Tabatabai. I'm sure I'm pronouncing her name wrong. She's Iranian American. She is starting a brewery in Brooklyn. She's already a contract brewer, and this is her brewery. But she did a Kickstarter, and she raised the most money ever for any brewery with her Kickstarter.
Wow.
Yeah. Her beers are very unique. Like a lot of people make gozers, but this one is with
Dozers?
pomegranates.
Did you say dozers?
Gozers.
Not dozers.
They're wheat beers.
They are wheat beers, but they usually have like a salty ending to them. They like that's kind of their characteristic, right? Sorry, Sriracha, get down.
We missed her.
He
We missed him
knows his
too.
beers.
Don't worry. We're glad to see him.
This beer is called Yalda Queen. Yalda night is the winter solstice in Iran. And so this beer is meant to commemorate the winter solstice, which is here now in the United States. And what she does that's very unique is she uses ingredients from her home country. Like she uses black limes and she uses Persian salts to make these beers based on recipes from ancient recipes from beer from Iran. So she's taking a modern twist on ancient recipes. Keep your eye open for these guys because they're really, really popular in New York right now. Like everybody's looking for their beer. It sells out immediately. It's called Back Home Beer. And this particular one, Yalda Queen Pomegranate Gozer, perfect beer.
For tomorrow night. I was wrong.
Yes.
Today is not
night,
the solstice.
the
Tomorrow
21st.
night, the 21st is the solstice.
Yes.
And the longest night of the year. So
yes.
Get a 6-pack.
It's a very light beer, so you could drink a 6-pack. It's like 4%.
It's going to feel like an eternity.
4%.
Lovely. What a nice story, too.
Yes.
Very cool. Yalda night. Gozer with a pomegranate and sea salt. Well, Mary Jo, it's been very wonderful to have you back on the show.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
We do miss you. I wish we could get you back more often, but I understand.
Thanks.
Things are going so well at directionsonmicrosoft.com, and everybody should check her out there. And she does have a podcast.
She graduated with the cool kids. She's gone.
Yeah, she's with the cool kids now. That's for sure.
Now I get to podcast about licensing like for hours on end. It's like a whole new world.
If that's what you need, you know who you are and you know where to go, Mary Jo Foley. It really was nice to see you and a great surprise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Sriracha. and everything's going well, and you're happy in your Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Not Brooklyn, Manhattan.
Estate. Yep, still here. Same place, as you can see from my background.
Yep.
Same exact everything.
Yep. Well, we're so glad to see you again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Merry Christmas, Mary Jo.
Thanks.
And the same to you, Richard Campbell and Paul Thurrott. This is our last episode of 2023. We are we're going to adjourn for the week, and then next week it'll be a best of episode. So if you're subscribed to Windows Weekly, you'll get that automatically. Mary Jo, they've made you a lovely Joe Esposito does these great stickers in our Discord, and he's made you a lovely
nice
lovely wreath. Your Windows Weekly 2023 gift, Mary Jo, is here. Oh, isn't that sweet? Well, we really like having you here, and we hope you have a wonderful 2024. Same to you, gentlemen. Next week, a best of. We will be back January 3rd, if my...
I'm just going to sit here on Wednesday for 2.5 hours anyway. So
I had anything else to do.
I don't know why they're not calling. Hello.
January 3rd, come back and join us. Without Mary Jo, sad to say, because she's going back to work. But Richard Campbell will be here. He is, of course, the host of Run As Radio and .NET Rocks at runasradio.com. Paul Thurrott at Thurrott.com. That's his home on the web. Become a premium member for the great extra content. And, of course, his books, Windows Everywhere. Mary Jo, since you've been gone, he's written 2 more books. He's insane.
He is insane.
The
Windows 11 Field Guide is over 1,000 pages now.
Oh, my goodness.
That should count as 2 books.
It's so easy to use.
Go to leanpub.com and get yours. You set your own price. We will be back on January 3rd, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. I say that because you can watch us do the show as we produce it on YouTube Live. That's youtube.com/twit. But, of course, you can always get a copy of it after the fact, audio or video at twit.tv/WW. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly. And our favorite thing is if you subscribe, get it in Pocket Casts or whatever podcast app you use, and you'll get it automatically every Wednesday afternoon after we finish the show. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Mary Jo. Thanks, Richard. Happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas.
You too.
Yeah. Have a wonderful week off, and we'll see you 2 weeks from today on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
Merry Christmas.
Snow falling down in this merry little town. I'm sipping hot cocoa, waiting for you to come around. Every year I've missed your smile, your laughter so sweet. But this Christmas, Mary Jo, you'll be back on our street. Ooh, it's Christmas with you, can't believe it's true. Mistletoe and presents, all the joy that you bring. It's Christmas.